Konoha, the strategic alliance of Uchiha Shisui. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 I am that despicable villain. In the past, White Fang had too much prestige. Regardless of the truth, you can guess that the third generation was justified. But how can we be sure that what happened today was done by the third generation? Sima Yi looked at Shisui and asked with interest. The rumors are everywhere. The villagers are saying that the security department did nothing. The arrest of the wanted criminal was the work of the third generation and the Anbu. So where does the security department stand? He used the Anbu quote to appease me before, but I'm afraid he was just deliberately confusing me. He must have deliberately suppressed and appeased people to win people's hearts. Shisui was a little excited and couldn't help cursing. Despicable villain. Why did I regard him as the savior of Uchiha in the past? And why was I so moved by the will of fire he talked about? It's really… Shisui panted and didn't know what to curse for a while. Sima Yi sighed, put down the cup, stroked his long beard and said, I heard that Danzo was under house arrest today, and the root was broken up and stuffed into the Anbu. Danzo? Shisui's eyes flashed with doubt, and he frowned and asked, did he do it? But what does he want? No, his root has repeatedly targeted the Uchiha. If the Hokage intends to appease the Uchiha, the route will not be of much use, so he did this to deepen the conflict between the Uchiha and the villagers in order to continue to gain the support of the Hokage. Despicable guy. After Danzo was sent back to the clan land by the Anbu, someone from the Anbu found the clan leader again. It is unknown what they said specifically, but the elder seemed very happy to hear the news. When Shisui was scolding Danzo, Sima Yi threw out another piece of information. Shisui's mood suddenly changed. Is it still the third generation who did it? The root secretly took the wanted criminals, which must have been done by Danzo behind the third generation. He wanted to suppress Danzo and use this to appease the Uchiha. No, maybe it was still Danzo. Shisui cursed and became a little confused. He sat aside and scratched his head, very entangled. Seeing Shisui stop cursing, Sima Yi showed a strange look on his face. It is irrational for the third generation to constantly provoke the Uchiha. He is the Hokage, and the stability of Konoha is the first priority. For Danzo, it is right to suppress the Uchiha, but this level of stimulation will only arouse the dissatisfaction of the third generation, and he should not go to such a point. This matter is more harmful than beneficial to both of them. They don't benefit. Then who benefits? Sima Yi looked at Shisui and smiled meaningfully. Shisui's face changed. He stood up suddenly, looking at Sima Yi in disbelief. It can't be me. Yes, I am the despicable villain you mentioned. Shisui was stunned. He stared at Sima Yi for a long time without saying a word. Then his cheeks turned red, and he hurriedly explained, Grandpa, I didn't mean that, He scratched his head with a look of confusion and embarrassment. He didn't expect that the person he had been cursing in his heart all day would be Sima Yi. But why? What good will it do for me? The Uchiha clan does have a bad reputation right now, but even so, the third Hokage would never dare to provoke a civil war. He would not force the Uchiha clan to rebel, so we have to give the Uchiha a push and let the third Hokage see that rebellion is not far from him. Shisui frowned, a little worried. Force the Uchiha clan to rebel? The third Hokage is known as the strongest Hokage. With Konoha's current strength, even the entire Uchiha clan cannot succeed. Of course it's not a real rebellion, it's just to let the third Hokage see that the Uchiha clan has this tendency. Now that the war has just ended and people's minds have settled, only in this situation will he begin to compromise and make concessions for the sake of the overall situation, and the Uchiha clan will see hope. Shisui breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this. It turns out that Grandpa is doing this for the Uchiha clan. If the Uchiha clan can see the concessions of the Konoha clan's top leaders, then perhaps everyone will be able to live in peace and coexist with Konoha. For the Uchiha clan, Sima Yi chuckled and continued, once the Uchiha received the promise, they will rekindle their hope for Konoha. but this will be the final compromise. If Konoha breaks their promise again at this time, the Uchiha will be completely disappointed in Konoha and those who advocated compromise in the first place. Second elder and clan leader Fugaku, Shisui murmured, his expression a little dull. But will the third generation break their promise? Sima Yi did not answer this question, but took out a booklet and handed it to Shisui. This requires you to think slowly and verify carefully. Shisui took the booklet blankly, and it took a long time for him to react, and asked, "What is this?" "This is what we are going to do next, and the approximate cost." Shisui breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that Sima Yi had done something secretly again. Seeing that it was just an account book, he casually said, "Grandpa will handle the money. If it is not enough, I will find another way." Unexpectedly, Sima Yi shook his head. "This period of time is crucial. You must observe and pay attention to all actions. You must also write down these prices carefully and never be careless. Although family management does not require you to be proficient in everything, you should also know a thing or two, so that you will not be bullied when you become the clan leader or even the Hokage in the future." "I see, Grandpa is still thinking far ahead. I will remember it well." Shisui nodded and took the account book, still a little absent-minded. Seeing this, Sima Yi continued, "You don't need to worry too much. If nothing goes wrong, the Jonin meeting in 3 days will show clues. We just need to prepare early." The Jonin meeting theoretically represents the highest power of Konoha, and the selection of Hokage, system reform, task share division, and financial sorting are all included. Although Shisui is also a Jonin, as a member of the Uchiha clan, he will not skip Fugaku and participate alone unless the Hokage orders him to participate as an Anbu. Jounin meeting? "I hope everything goes well." Shisui was in a complicated mood, and he didn't know whether this meeting should go well. Sima Yi was always calm, and he had the answer in his heart. "Just keep calm, practice well, and keep an eye on Ichi." When Ichi was mentioned, Shisui immediately looked up and asked, "Speaking of which, Grandpa, what exactly is the meaning of the book you gave Ichi?" "The story I heard Ichi tell today doesn't seem to have much meaning." "Ha ha ha, if you think it doesn't have so many meanings, why bother thinking so much? It's just a travel book, and it has no special features except for the many words." "Huh?" Sima Yi laughed, facing Shisui's puzzled eyes. He explained, "Ichi is still young, but he thinks too much. You practice with him during the day to tire his body, and give him books at night to tire his mind, so that he doesn't have the energy to think too much." "That's it?" Shisui was confused. He thought about it for 2 days and couldn't guess Sima Yi's motives. He didn't expect it to be so simple. If you look into it carefully, the travel book can also help him gain knowledge, and he doesn't have to stick to this village. At last, Sima Yi pointed to the bookshelf behind him and said, "I asked Jinhuo to buy some more. Remember to continue his book when he finishes reading it." "Okay." Chapter 52. I will check my homework after the new year. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. "Uncle Yi, you are right. When I went to their store today, the expressions of those guys were so ugly that one of them knelt down and begged me. Fortunately, I helped him up before he begged me." At noon, Hua came to the study room with something excited. As soon as he entered the door, he poured out the morning's events like pouring beans. Unexpectedly, Shisui was in the corner of the study room holding a scroll recording the sealing technique and staring at him blankly. "Shisui, why are you here?" Hua noticed something was wrong and turned his head to look. The corner of his mouth twitched and he smiled awkwardly. Shisui raised his eyebrows with a strange look on his face. "This is my home." "Ah, ha ha ha, yes. I wanted to ask, aren't you going to practice with Ichi? Why are you back so early today?" Patriarch Fugaku and Aunt Mikoto were busy today, so they left Sasuke to Ichi's care. So he came to tell me this morning and then went back. "Huh? Ichi is only 6 years old. Is he already taking care of Sasuke?" "The children of the clan leader are really hard-working." "That's right." Thinking of Ichi holding the child, Hua's mouth twitched, and he couldn't help but sighed. Shisui also sighed and nodded in agreement. "By the way, what was Brother Hua talking about just now?" Who asked Tutu. Seeing that he couldn't fool him, Hua could only smile and look at Sima Yi. Sima Yi was drinking tea and reading a book as if he didn't notice. Haha, Konoha has been in turmoil recently, and the salt merchants in the village came to me for protection. They promised to give me 10% of the profits every month in the hope that I can protect their shops from being affected. But Kamimori Yazi is willing to give 30%, and directly gave me 3 million taels as a gift. It seems that what he saw in the illusion last time has moved him. The first half of the sentence was said to Shisui, and the second half was said to Sima Yi. Shisui was about to ask more but was interrupted by Sima Yi. Just say it directly, there is no need to hide it, and let Shisui understand it. Hua felt that this kind of thing was a bit of bullying and not glorious, but in Sima Yi's opinion, this kind of thing was nothing special. If Shisui couldn't even accept this kind of thing, it would be impossible for Uchiha to win. Okay, Hua scratched his head, moved in front of Shisui and told him everything about threatening the salt merchants. Shisui frowned when he heard this. He looked at Sima Yi but he was not angry. Instead, he said, they concealed taxes and caused the village to be short of funds. How many sacrifice ninjas? Their families can't get pensions. It's a bargain for them that they are not arrested directly. Yingshu is in his yard. Such a family who sacrificed for Konoha can't get the due reward. The top management is wrong, and these people are also wrong. Shisui, who was stunned. He didn't expect Shisui to react like this, so calmly. Shisui then asked, Grandpa, why do these businesses that have nothing to do with ninjas make so much money? Ninjas are a minority after all. There are at least 300,000 ordinary people in Konoha. Daily food and salt are indispensable, so the profits are naturally considerable. Although those businesses related to ninjas are more profitable, there are too many ninja clans reaching out, and it is inconvenient for us to intervene. Otherwise it will attract their attention. Uncle Yi is still amazing. In the future, these salt shops alone will provide us with 700,000 taels every month, which is almost half of an S-level task. Although it is not much, it is better in the long run. After the new year, we will find a way to take on some tasks. We will save money to train ninjas and then pull our clansmen to build ninjas together. Ahem. Seeing that Hua was a little outspoken, Shisui interrupted quickly. Brother Hua, you haven't eaten yet. I'll ask them to get some food for you. I have eaten. At noon, I took everyone from the guard department to have barbecue. He seen that the two of them had gone off topic. Sima Yi chuckled and said, it's okay to rely on little money and small favors, but it's far from enough to do big things. But this is just the beginning. You don't have to care about these, just focus more on tomorrow's meeting. Upon hearing this, Shisui immediately said seriously, Grandpa is right. In order to know the content of the meeting as soon as possible, I plan to go to the leader of the Fugaku clan tonight and ask him to agree that I can go with him. Sima Yi nodded and added, go to the third generation first, and then go to the clan leader after getting his permission. Yes, Grandpa. What about me? Hua couldn't help but feel anxious when he saw the two of them talking to themselves. He pointed at himself and asked, after you finish dealing with the grain merchants, take the people in the security department to eat more good food, and take this opportunity to contact those captains. What kind of mission is this? Hua rolled his eyes. Isn't this looking down on him? However, Sima Yi looked at him seriously and said, winning people's hearts is the top priority. Whether everything will go smoothly in the future depends on your performance. How can you not take such a big task entrusted to you seriously? Hua widened his eyes, took a breath, and nodded quickly. I know. I will do my best and bring them all here, and then we will build it together. Hush! Shisui jumped up and covered Hua's mouth with his hands, shaking his head repeatedly. Brother Hua, if the king is not discreet, he will lose his ministers. If the ministers are not discreet, they will lose themselves. And if some things are not discreet, harm will be done. We just need to know this kind of words, and we must never say them. Hua frowned and looked at Shisui in disbelief. Then he looked at Sima Yi. What's the harm of being discreet or not? Uncle Yi, why didn't you teach me this? Are you secretly teaching Shisui again? Shisui's cheeks blushed. Grandpa is my teacher, and teaching me can't be called secretly. Tsk Hua pouted. But Sima Yi suddenly asked, have you finished reading the new edition of clan history given to you? Hua looked up at the ceiling, then frowned in thought, then lowered his head and touched his chin. For a long time, he showed a look of sudden enlightenment and clapped his hands and said, "Oh, I remember, that Osaka Yuzuki is still in prison. I was wondering why I always felt that I forgot something." Then, he suddenly turned around. "No, I have to go and check it out. It's been several days. Don't let anything happen." After saying that, he opened the door of the study without looking back and was about to leave. But unexpectedly Sima Yi suddenly spoke up and said lightly, "No need, Osaka Yuzuki was released yesterday. Come to me after the new year. I want to check your homework." Damn it, he didn't run away. He is already in his 20s, and he still has to do homework. How did Uncle Yi know that the guy was released? Damn Osaka Yuzuki, if I had known yesterday, I wouldn't have let you go. Shisui, you have worked hard on the Uchiha affairs. If you participate in this meeting, it will be smoother. In the evening, in the Hokage building, the third generation looked at Shisui, who was supposed to be on vacation, and was a little surprised, but after hearing his purpose, he immediately nodded with relief. There have been constant turmoil during this period, and he needs a rational Uchiha clan member who is inclined to Konoha to help him stabilize the Uchiha clan. Shisui came just in time. Everything is for Konoha, third generation. Chapter 53 Meeting begins. Grandpa, good morning. The next day, the cold wind suddenly blew and snowflakes fell. Shisui got up early and stepped on the snow to exercise by the pond in the courtyard. When he saw Sima Yi coming out of the door, he immediately stopped and exhaled a breath of hot air to greet him. Sima Yi smiled and nodded in response. After washing up, the two sat quietly in the house to enjoy breakfast. Grandpa, I will go to the Jounin meeting with the Fugaku clan leader later. Do you have any instructions? After dinner, Shisui looked at Sima Yi with some expectation in his eyes. Listen more, watch more, speak less, don't have too many expectations, just let it go. Sima Yi didn't care about the result of the meeting. If it went well, they could start later and be well prepared. If it didn't go well, they could still seize the opportunity. Shisui took note carefully and nodded and replied, "Okay, Grandpa, I'll leave first." He stood up and said goodbye, and came to Fugaku's house with mixed feelings. Fugaku also got up early in the morning, but his complexion was not very good. He was more tired than usual in the past few days. He was in charge of resolving conflicts between the clan and Konoha, conflicts between clan elders, and various matters of the annual meeting. Clan leader, Brother Tuo. Shisui crossed the front yard and came to the corridor to salute. Tuo had already sat there waiting. "Well, I should have let you rest well. You have worked hard on clan affairs." Seeing Shisui coming, Fugaku nodded in response. He originally planned to bring Yasai and Tuo to the meeting, but Shisui's request helped him a lot. Yasai took the initiative to withdraw. Even if something happened at the meeting, it would not be immediately reported to the ears of the elders, and perhaps he could think calmly for a night. Everything is for Uchiha. Shisui lowered his head and replied firmly, "Clan leader, it's almost time, let's go." Tuo also greeted him, and then reminded him from the side. Fugaku stood up, and the two followed closely behind him. Facing the wind and snow, they walked towards the core area of Konoha, the Hokage building. Walking from the outer Konoha to the core area, many people recognized them along the way. Some bowed, some dodged, and some ignored. Fugaku, who bowed, also nodded in response, and ignored those who dodged and ignored. When they arrived, many ninjas had gathered in the meeting room. 2 or 3 people from the Hyuga clan, Nara clan, Yamanaka clan, Akimaki clan, and other powerful clans came, while only one person from the weaker clans such as Kurama and Hate came and sat quietly aside. The rest were all civilian ninjas who had made their mark in this war, and they were elected to participate in this Jounin meeting. After Fugaku and his 2 companions arrived, the slightly noisy meeting room gradually became quiet, and everyone's eyes fell on them. Since the end of the war, there have been constant disturbances about Uchiha, and everyone has heard a lot of rumors. They have mixed emotions, but most of them made the same move, indifference. Fugaku and his 2 companions, however, had the same expression, and sat in front of the meeting room facing everyone's mixed eyes. Not long after the three of them sat down, the sound of footsteps and crutches hitting the ground was heard again in the quiet meeting room. Everyone's eyes moved away, and when they saw the people coming, they glanced away. Danzo was seen walking slowly alone with a cane. His cold eyes swept over the three Fugakus and then went straight past the seat in the middle of the front row. Then, Koharu Uten and En Midokado each brought two family members to sit with Danzo. Up to this moment, there were nearly 60 people in the conference room, but there were still two empty seats in the middle of the front row, and everyone was waiting. "Oh, am I late?" The voice came before the person, and the gentle voice with a smile entered the conference room. Everyone stood up to greet him. The third generation was wearing the Hokage's divine robe, with one hand behind his back and the other holding the pipe and walking slowly. Behind him were two people, a man and a woman, both wearing Jonin chain armor, with sharp eyes and strong aura. The two were the third generation's son, Sarutobi Shinosuke, and his daughter-in-law Sarutobi Yuki. Third generation. Everyone greeted him, and the third generation smiled and took the two people to the high platform. He took off his hat to shake off the snowflakes and looked at everyone. This is the first snow of the year, covering the entire village. It's colder than before. It's time for withered leaves like us to light a fire for Konoha to dispel the cold. The third generation seemed a little melancholy when he said this, but Danzo's eyes changed when he heard it. A lot has happened in Konoha this year, but fortunately, with everyone's concerted efforts, we finally won. We successfully protected Konoha and the partners in the village. However, we also lost many companions, but they will not disappear. They burned themselves to illuminate the village and brought light and heat to the new leaves. Everything is for the future of the new leaves. For Konoha. For Konoha. The whole audience was shocked. Whether they were moved or not, whether they agreed or not, everyone applauded. The applause was loud and long. The third generation nodded with satisfaction, but did not take the Hokage's hat, but left it on the stage, and then took Sarutobi Shinosuke to sit in the two middle seats in the front row. Only Sarutobi Yuki was left standing on the stage. As the current leader of the Jonin class, she needed to preside over the entire meeting. At the signal of the third Hokage, everyone sat down one after another, and then looked up at Yuki Sarutobi. They all knew that the next point of this meeting was the focus. Yuki Sarutobi had short hair and looked very capable. Under the gaze of everyone, he took out a document, and the meeting started directly after a simple greeting. The first topic was the war situation report related to everyone. Although it was called a topic, everyone only needed to listen to the results. Among them, the war between Konoha and the Land of Water, the Land of Wind, and the Land of Earth was basically over. It was only necessary to leave some ninjas on guard in the original site of the Land of Whirlpools, the Land of Grass, and the Land of Rivers. Only in the Land of Lightning, although there was no large-scale war, there were still constant frictions, and it was necessary to keep some troops on guard in the Land of Hot Water. However, everyone knew that there would be no large-scale war with the Land of Lightning, and now it was barely a peaceful period. The second topic was about the Ministry of Education. After the war, the difficulty of the graduation examination of the ninja school would increase, and at the same time, the examination of Chunin and Jonin would also increase. However, this had little to do with everyone. Those who were qualified to come here were genuine Jonin. The third topic was about the system, which mentioned that the compensation for the dead in battle would not be allowed to be collected in one lump sum in the next few years. Although the consecutive topics were cumbersome, not many of them required a vote, until the eighth one. Since the fourth Hokage died in the Nine Tails Rebellion, the third Hokage had to serve as Hokage again, but this was a temporary wartime strategy after all. Now that the war is over, should the fifth Hokage be reselected for the village? As soon as this was said, the whole audience was in an uproar. Danzo's eyes widened, and his breathing became a little rapid. He was about to speak, but he heard Uchiha Koharu beside him say first, "Now that the war has just ended, there are signs of the Lightning Country rekindling the war. The situation in Konoha is unstable. How can Hiruzen leave at this time? Let's wait until the situation stabilizes before talking about the fifth Hokage." As Uchiha Koharu finished speaking, Mito Kato and also nodded in agreement. Seeing this, even those who had some ideas immediately changed their minds and agreed. For a time, the whole audience was full of voices trying to keep him. Chapter 54 Meeting Dispute. Fugaku looked calm and didn't say anything, but just glanced at Teuo, who immediately understood and tried to persuade him to stay. Shisui, who was sitting on the side, felt quite strange. Is this a retreat to advance? Seeing that everyone still supported the third Hokage, Danzo's old face darkened, and although he was unwilling, he had to shut up. Seeing this, Sarutobi Yuki put down the documents, smiled, picked up the bamboo hat, walked to the stage and returned it to the third Hokage. The third Hokage stood up and took it, and he looked back at everyone with a heavy expression. A dead leaf like me should burn for Konoha until the situation stabilizes and the fifth Hokage is selected from among you. At that time, I will entrust the heavy responsibility in my hands. His voice was low, and there was still some fatigue and expectation in his eyes. Everyone was moved, who didn't have a dream of becoming a Hokage when they were young. Now, maybe they have a chance to. Clap, clap, clap. The applause rang out, and Danzo snorted coldly and simply closed his eyes. Shisui was very bored. He thought the third Hokage would at least refuse twice, but he didn't expect him to accept it directly. The meeting continued, and the next thing was the division of finance and task shares, which the ninja clans and the top leaders were most concerned about. The daimyo's appropriation has been in place. Although it has been reduced compared to last year, it is still a huge sum of money. The next is the ninth topic, the estimated financial appropriation for Konoha in 50 years, of which the pension for the ninjas who died in this war is the first. The financial topic also includes tax adjustments. After the war, the tax on ordinary goods began to decrease, and the tax on ninja-related items began to increase. The ninja clans were happy and worried. Of course, most of them were still worried. Then came the appropriation, and the pension ranked first. Everyone had no objection, followed by the war task appropriation and the retention task appropriation. These are all necessary and will maintain the operation of the task program in the next year. It involves all aspects and is directly controlled by the Hokage. Then there are the Anbu, the medical department, the education department, the security department, the barrier department, and the interrogation department. Of course, the order only represents the degree of importance, not the amount of appropriation. Among all kinds of appropriations, the task appropriation is the largest, accounting for more than 30%. Next is the Anbu 250 million ryo, the medical department 220 million ryo, the education department 200 million ryo, the pension 150 million ryo, the barrier department 130 million ryo, the security department 80 million ryo, and the interrogation department at least 50 million ryo. A total of 1.6 billion daimyo appropriations were allocated to various departments, and the taxes of Konoha village were temporarily left in the hands of the Hokage for emergency use. Next is the task share. The Anbu retained most of the high-level tasks, and everyone had no objection. After all, higher returns and high risks. Low-level tasks continued to be delegated, except for the security department. The rest of the departments basically had to wait for the Anbu to select them, or simply snatch them in the task hall. After listening to this, some of the ninjas frowned, some nodded with satisfaction, and some had no expression. Their tentacles spread across various departments outside the security department, and the financial tilt will affect their interests in the next year. Fugaku breathed a sigh of relief. This money is not much, because the security department basically has no task share, which is the big head, but this appropriation has greatly recovered compared to last year. This is a matter of attitude. The above is the content of the financial issue. If you have any objections, you can start speaking now. Yoki Sarutobi's expression was indifferent, which was very different from the expression when she presented the bamboo hat to the third Hokage, but no one paid attention to her at this moment. The audience gradually became noisy. Finance was related to their vital interests, and no one would let this item pass. Isn't it too little to have only 150 million ryo in compensation? Can this amount of money make up for the previous vacancies? The person who stood up was only a civilian jonin, He didn't care about these departments. He just wanted to get compensation for the people behind him. At the current price, if a genin wants to receive the compensation in one go, he can get about 700,000 ryo. If he wants to receive it in installments, he can get 3,500 ryo every month for 20 years. Shisui thought of Hideki's situation. His father and brother all died in the war. One chunin and one genin. Theoretically, he should be able to receive 2 million ryo, but he only got 400,000 ryo. Shisui looked sideways and memorized the man's face. Yoki Sarutobi calmly opened the document of the third topic and replied, Konoha is in financial difficulties at present, and the pension system has to be temporarily changed. In the next few years, you can no longer choose to receive the pension in one lump sum. Only in this way can we pay the monthly pension on time and temporarily save some funds to continue rebuilding the damaged places in the past, so the allocation of 150 million ryo is sufficient for now. After the voice fell, Fugaku frowned slightly, feeling a little uneasy. Konoha was not beaten into the village. The damaged places in the past were naturally the losses caused by the Nine Tails. Since the war has continued to this day, the top leaders have been unable to rebuild. Although Shisui's face was calm, his eyes also fell from the civilian Jonin to Yoki Sarutobi. Even if the three Uchiha didn't look back, they could clearly feel that a lot of eyes were swept towards them after Yoki Sarutobi replied, "If that's the case, then I have no problem." The man was silent for a moment, responded to the signal of the people around him, and sat down. The atmosphere in the room gradually became a little depressing, and the third generation kept frowning and smoking. There have been many accidents in the ninja hospital recently. Many ninjas who returned from the difficult front line lost their lives due to the incompetence and lack of care of some medical ninjas. Although these medical ninjas are not affiliated with the medical department, their incompetence still caused great losses to the medical department and Konoha's partners. In just a few days, we have seen too many relatives' tears. Will this kind of thing continue? A person stood up behind Uten Koharu. It was Utenki. Her voice was excited and seemed to be angry. Everyone was puzzled. The funding obtained by the medical department was second only to the Anbu among the 6 departments. What else could she be dissatisfied with? We need to train more medical ninjas, instead of letting those who are incompetent and have no will of fire in their hearts fill the vacancies. Sarutobi Yoki was speechless. She didn't know much about the things in the village. She knew what was going on. Seeing this, she immediately glanced at the third generation. Seeing that he didn't say anything, he responded, Konoha is in financial difficulty this year, and there are still many things to do. The allocation for the medical department has reached its limit. Unexpectedly, Utenki looked annoyed and shouted, "No, it is precisely because of the financial difficulties this year that we should spend money on important things instead of letting such things continue to happen. What do you think?" Lord Fugaku, how dare you? Tyuo was furious when he heard this. He stood up on the spot, staring at the other party with 3 Magatama, and Shisui also stood up, but his breath did not change. Fugaku was the minister of the security department after all, and the other party's behavior was a complete rebellion, which was absolutely not allowed for a ninja. Everyone's face changed, thinking that something was wrong. Just as they were about to stand up, they saw Uten Koharu speak sternly, "Shut up. Who allowed you to question Minister Fugaku like this?" Uten Koharu's face changed suddenly when she heard that. She clenched her fists, her body trembled slightly, and she bowed her head with great reluctance and said, "I'm sorry, Lord Fugaku, I lost my temper." Fugaku turned his head to look at Uten Koharu. His face was back to normal and his voice was calm. He nodded and said, "Yeah." Then he looked at Tetsuka and said, "Sit down." Shisui sighed. While he was dissatisfied with Uten, he had to admire Fugaku's composure. However, although Koharu's words were a little impulsive, they made sense. "I wanted to update later because something happened, but someone in the comment section said that I was a eunuch. I was so scared that I quickly updated." There will be another picture later, and an explanation of what happened in the chapter. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 Meeting Dispute. Fugaku's expression changed slightly, but he heard Yuta Koharu continue. So many ninjas lost their lives because of these people's incompetence and carelessness. Do these medical ninjas really regard them as partners of Konoha? Do these people still have the will of fire in their hearts? Yuta Koharu's voice became louder and louder, with a hint of questioning. Tuo was indignant and said immediately, "What Elder Koharu said is too far-fetched. Those people were already seriously ill. How can their sacrifice be blamed on the medical ninjas? And since you knew these people were seriously ill, why didn't you use the ninjas from the medical department but instead handed them over to the kind people who came to support you? Are you deliberately targeting them?" Facing Tuo's question, Yuta Koharu remained calm and continued. The medical ninjas from Uchiha acted recklessly and had conflicts with seriously injured patients many times. These people fought on the front lines for Konoha, and after finally returning to Konoha, they didn't even get the care they deserved. Is this Uchiha's attitude towards these heroes? Is this what you call targeting us? How can you blame us for the conflict? Tuo's face changed, and gradually turned red. Yuta Koharu did not continue arguing with Tetsuka, but the other person she brought followed closely and sneered. "Don't blame you? Do you blame those comrades who were injured for Konoha? Is this the Uchiha with such magnanimity?" Tetsuka immediately asked angrily. "Who do you think you are? How dare you doubt the magnanimity of us Uchiha? We have never seen you when we were fighting on the front line." "I'm a medical ninja. How can I ignore the overall situation and go to the front line? Don't the Uchiha people know the warning of Lady Tsunade? No wonder they treat the seriously injured comrades so harshly." Tetsuka paused, and was about to continue arguing but was interrupted by Fugaku. Fugaku glanced at the sandai before speaking. "Then I wonder what Elder Koharu means? If you are not satisfied with our medical ninjas, why didn't you inform us in advance? I can order them to be transferred from the ninja hospital today." "I have no intention of targeting anyone, so why should Minister Fugaku be angry? Besides, the hospital is still short of staff. If they are transferred at this time, wouldn't it be disregarding the partners in the village?" The reason why I said this is just to invest more of the village's limited funds in important places. Vitamin Yen, who was sitting near her, asked at the right time. What Elder Koharu said makes sense. The medical department is of great importance, but the village no longer has the spare capacity to continue to support the medical department. If we want to increase support, we can only divert funds from other departments. Everyone is not stupid. After hearing this, they know what these consultants mean, but they are surprisingly quiet and choose to remain silent. Whether it is the ninja clan or the civilians, they have nothing to do with the interests of the security department. If I remember correctly, the funding for the guard department was only 40 million ryo last year. Why has it doubled this year? The guard department has 52 people in 4 detachments, all of whom are elite members of the clan. This money is barely enough to pay their salaries, not to mention the daily maintenance of the guard department's large number of facilities and barriers. Fugaku frowned slightly. Last year, because of the Nine Tails Rebellion, they were ostracized by the entire village, so the funding was directly reduced from 100 million ryo to a mere 40 million ryo. With such a big sharing gun hanging there, all their excuses were pale. Last year, the war continued, and the situation was special. Each department cut funding to support the ninja army. This year, the Uchiha made a huge contribution to Konoha. Now that the war is over, there are many more things happening inside Konoha, and the guard department has become busy, so it is reasonable to increase funding. While Fugaku was thinking, the Sanda suddenly explained. Yuta Koharu and Mito Kato-en were stunned, and then looked at the silent Sanda with some confusion in their eyes. As for the medical disturbance, I have already asked someone to appease the relatives. Life and death are difficult to guarantee. Even if Tsunade comes back, she may not be able to save everyone. The Uchiha people may have a bad temper, but they will not do such a dereliction of duty. However, Fugaku still has to mention it to the clan members after the meeting, and try to control it. Yes, Lord Sandaime, Fugaku responded quickly, feeling relieved. No wonder the hospital incident has not spread throughout Konoha. It turned out that the Sandame secretly suppressed it. Yutane Koharu's face darkened, and she was even more puzzled why the Sandame would defend the Uchiha. Can Konoha's stability be counted on by the security department? Danzo, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke up. He snorted and said, "Hasn't Konoha been in enough chaos recently? Villagers are in conflict, ninjas are in conflict, and the exposed spy has not been caught until today, and these seriously ill relatives. This is all due to the incompetence of the security department." Is this how the security department treats the funds we allocated? Midokado Yen seized the opportunity to take over the topic. The villagers are constantly talking, and Konoha is in chaos. The security department should be rectified. I think we should be cautious about the allocation of funds. Yes, we still have to consider it carefully. Let's allocate this money to the medical department. Some ninjas related to the medical department couldn't help but agree, but most people chose to watch the show silently. Fugaku's face gradually became ugly. He didn't expect that these assistants would actually suppress Uchiha together. If the content of these meetings were passed back to the clan, he could already imagine the anger of the elders. He was annoyed and snorted coldly, asking, "You three are talking lightly. How can the guards be reorganized without funds?" Shisui's mouth twitched when he heard this, and he looked at Fugaku in disbelief. Yutane Koharu seized the opportunity and immediately said, "Since Minister Fugaku has also realized the incompetence of the guard department, let's think about how to reorganize it in the next year. As for the funds this time, I think we should follow the last time." Fugaku paused. When did he admit the incompetence of the guard department? The third generation sighed and chimed in again. "The funds are limited, and the war is over. There is no need to increase the funds for the medical department. The guard department is also very important to the village, so let's keep the funds there." Seeing the third generation speak again, Yutane Koharu took a deep breath and was very confused, while Midokado Yen realized something was wrong and chose to remain silent. Danzo glanced at Yutane Koharu and sneered, and suddenly suggested, "Since the funds for the medical department are sufficient, why not transfer 20 million ryo from the guard department to repair the places damaged by the Nine Tails last time?" Nine Tails. Fugaku was speechless. The Nine Tails was a hurdle they couldn't get around. The Sandame frowned and ignored Danzo. Instead, he looked at Fugaku deeply. The two looked at each other, and there seemed to be some helplessness in their eyes. "Then let's vote." Seeing the silence of the Sandame, Midokado Yen suggested. Yutane Koharu glared at Danzo, and although he was a little unwilling, he could only nod. Everyone looked at the Sandame again. Since it came to this, he had no choice but to agree. It was not until this moment that Sarutobi Yuki moved to preside over the vote, but the three Uchiha had already anticipated the result. For all votes, the Hokage, assistants, and the heads of the 6 departments were not allowed to participate. Only other Jonin could vote, and the results came out very quickly. As expected, 24 people agreed to allocate funds, 3 people opposed, and basically all the ninjas chose to abstain. Chapter 56 Friday Release Notice. First of all, thank you all for your continued support. This book is my best so far, whether it is follow-up reading, monthly tickets, rewards, recommendation tickets or suggestions. My last book was written for 850,000 words, but the performance was very poor. I also saw someone asking me in the comment section if I have other books, but I have not responded specifically, because it is really bad. If you know me from that book, I guess you will not click on this one. And now it cannot be found on Kidian. Some people even commented that I am a big shot. When I saw this, I suddenly felt swelled, but I am not. Both the performance and writing style are very average. Now if you read it from the beginning, many people should find that my words are sometimes very monotonous, all about face, expression, and complexion. Many repetitive things are used over and over again, because there is really no accumulation. The number of words is only about 2 million, and it is intermittent. But thank you all for your continued support and praise. Well, let's talk about what happened. This book was put on the test push last Sunday, which is the first round of recommendation. I thought I would write slowly in rounds and rounds like this, but I didn't expect that when I woke up today, the assistant notified me that it would be put on the shelves at 8 o'clock tonight. Huh? My last book was put on the shelves with 300,000 words. 300,000. I am still confused and don't know why. Is it too early to put it on the shelves with 100,000 words? I saw that the books on the new book list were all 150,000 or 60,000 words but not put on the shelves yet. Why was mine put on the shelves suddenly? I quickly asked the editor, and then he helped me adjust it to 8 o'clock on Friday night. Ah, it seems to be different. But it seems not different. I asked those big guys again, can I not send VIP chapters after the shelves are put on the shelves? I want to get more recommendations, because only 11 or 12 words are too few. Who doesn't want to make progress? But the big guys told me that not sending VIP chapters is considered a break. Then I just asked the big guys again, would it seem a bit anxious to put it on the shelves with 100,000 words, which made me a little embarrassed. He said that putting it on the shelves with 200,000 words is considered late. Although my book is not very good, it is not a failure. 120,000 words are about the same. It is late to adjust it to Friday. I don't understand these things, but the editor can pull me up and won't cheat me. I still have to listen to the professionals. Afterwards, I looked at Sanjiang's books again and found that many of them were put on the shelves today. I suddenly felt lucky, as if I had accidentally avoided them. Happy anyway. That's about it. If nothing unexpected happens, they will be put on the shelves this Friday night. I will try to save as many chapters as possible, but I don't think I can save much. Yesterday, the updater in the coding room spent 7 hours to write 4,000 words. I can't imagine the speed of Eagle's hand and thinking. I dare not say more, but I will guarantee 5 updates at least. As for the other extra updates, I will see how they write the induction for the release of the books, and I will also write one on Thursday night. That's all. Thank you. Chapter 57 Snow. This means that the Uchiha's budget for next year will be reduced from the original 80 million ryo to 60 million ryo. Is this a lot of money? Too little. Under normal circumstances, Uchiha people cannot accept too many tasks, especially those who join the security department. This money is equivalent to the income of the entire police department for the next year. Although it was less last year, at least there were war missions, and many people received extra compensation. Shisui's expression was calm, but his eyes swept over Danzo. Although he had expected it, he still couldn't suppress his anger when he got the result. However, what surprised him was that the third generation took extra care of Uchiha today, which made him a little puzzled. The vote passed, and 20 million ryo will be allocated from the security department budget to rebuild the damaged areas of Konoha. The next item is the 10th agenda. The remaining topics were quickly finished. Fugaku and Teuo were in a heavy mood and didn't pay attention to it, while Shisui calmed down and wrote them down one by one. It was not until the evening that this meeting of the Jonin finally came to an end. Before leaving, the third Hokage called Fugaku, and with a sad face, he said in a soft voice, "Fugaku, Uchiha is a member of Konoha after all. I believe in Uchiha, and I also ask Uchiha to believe in Konoha." Fugaku was slightly moved, and thinking of the third Hokage's protection today, his anger could not help but subside a little. He promised, "Uchiha will always be Konoha's Uchiha." The third Hokage nodded with satisfaction, and continued, "Give me some more time, and everyone will understand Uchiha." Shisui remained silent, observing the third Hokage's every move. Fugaku agreed, and the three turned and left. Outside the Hokage building, the snow was getting heavier and heavier, and it had piled up a thick layer. The street lights quietly lit up, illuminating the way for everyone to return. Everyone stepped out of the Hokage building and went their separate ways. Suddenly, a man passed by Fugaku. He looked a little old. After noticing Fugaku, he bowed and saluted. After Fugaku responded, he left. The two did not communicate. Fugaku and the other two looked at the old man who left alone and felt a little sad. That was the old patriarch of the Kurama clan, one of the few Jonins on the Kurama clan's roster, and the third person to vote against the resolution. "Let's go," Fugaku said softly, and the three of them walked through the snow back to the clan's territory. Before they parted, he looked at Shisui and instructed, "Don't disclose the contents of the meeting easily. I'll tell the clan elders." Shisui understood what he meant and nodded in agreement. "You are the bridge between Konoha and Uchiha, so I'll leave the family's affairs to you." Fugaku's expression remained the same, but the look he gave Shisui carried a hint of expectation and sadness. "Yes, everything for Uchiha." Shisui lowered his head, and his answer was still so sincere. The two said goodbye to Fugaku and walked quietly in the clan's territory. Tyuo had mixed feelings. He looked at the snowflakes falling on Shisui's shoulders, and his voice was full of confusion. "Can Uchiha and Konoha still coexist? Do we really have time? I will save everything and will never let such a thing happen." For Uchiha, Shisui continued to walk without looking back, but his answer was so firm. The red back was particularly hot in the gray snow. Tyuo stared blankly and could not help but follow closely. "Then I'll leave it to you, Lord Shisui." Shisui turned around, with a gentle smile on his face, which seemed to dispel the chill. He whispered, "Leave it to me." Back in the yard, Sima Yi was sitting in the corridor drinking tea. There was a stove next to him, and he was concentrating on watching the snowflakes fall into the pool and then disappear. "Grandpa, I'm back." Shisui walked over on the path he had just cleared. Sima Yi came back to his senses. He stood up and looked at Shisui. With a smile, he gently shook off the snowflakes on Shisui's shoulders, and then said in a local way, "Welcome home." The two walked from the corridor into the hall. The meal was ready. The moment Shisui came back, Uchiha rushed to the kitchen to notify him. The two sat down to enjoy dinner. Shisui occasionally glanced over and looked at the snow scene outside through the corridor. He couldn't help but sighed. It would be nice if it could be so peaceful forever. Sima Yi chuckled. He knew that the meeting would not go smoothly, but seeing that Shisui seemed a little decadent, he still said, "Those who have no ambition will eventually be controlled by others." Shisui paused, turned back and smiled. "Grandpa is right. The decision-making power should be in your own hands to feel at ease." The two did not mention the content of the meeting. Since recruiting attendants, they half tacitly agreed to discuss serious matters in the study. After dinner, the two came to the study, and Shisui told Sima Yi everything that happened in today's meeting. "Grandpa, why is the third Hokage so protective of us today? Is it to appease us? But I don't think so. This time he seems to be more sincere than before." Sima Yi nodded and said, "You are right. He secretly suppressed the hospital incident because he didn't want to make a big fuss. He didn't want to put too much pressure on Uchiha by protecting us today." Shisui's eyes moved, and he thought of what Sima Yi said 3 days ago, and immediately reacted. "Is he afraid that we will really rebel?" "That's right. There are constant frictions in the north, and the war has just ended. Konoha is in a weak period. If Uchiha rebels, even if he can put down the rebellion, the entire Konoha will be in tatters. By then, the Fourth Ninja World War will inevitably break out, and Konoha will no longer exist." Shisui nodded, and then thought of the three assistants again, and suddenly became angry. The three of them are assistants to the Hokage, and the Hokage is unwilling to continue suppressing the Uchiha. Why are they so aggressive? Sima Yi shook his head and chuckled. "Those who eat meat are despicable and only care about what is in front of them. The three of them are just assistants, not Hokage. They can't see or consider the things that the Hokage needs to consider." But Uten is a bit greedy. Obviously, he doesn't understand the third Hokage as well as Danzo, nor is he as experienced as him. Uten Koharu hopes to transfer all 40 million ryo to the medical department, while Danzo only takes 20 million ryo and bluntly says that it will be used to rebuild Konoha. Although they all know that the money will inevitably pass through Danzo's hands, at least they can save face. Danzo is indeed insidious. No wonder Grandpa said before that he could consider cooperating with him. Ha ha ha. This is also a recognition of him. Shisui chuckled and continued, "I plan to end my vacation tomorrow and return to the Anbu early. If there is a chance, I would like to contact Danzo. What do you think, Grandpa?" The support of the Hokage is indeed important, but the attitude of the Hokage is already very clear at the moment, so there is no need to rush. As for Danzo, Now is not the time. Let's wait for the news to spread. You can continue to call Uchiha to understand the situation in the next few days. We can keep enough spies in the clan to keep abreast of the intelligence at all times. There is no need to disrupt the formation because of this matter. In addition to Brother Hu, I have some former subordinates in the clan. This matter can be entrusted to them. Shisui did not insist and said according to Sima Yi's suggestion, although he would not spread the content of the meeting. Such a major event would be known to basically all ninja clans within 2 days. Of course, with the power controlled by the Great Elder, such a thing may not be concealed tonight. The turmoil in the clan is inevitable. Chapter 58, Testing. As expected by the two, Uchiha brought news the next day. The elders came to our house early in the morning to argue, but I haven't heard what they were arguing about yet. So my mother asked me to come out and practice with Brother Shisui. Shisui touched Uchiha's short hair and took out the 3-color meatballs he had bought in advance from the table. Don't worry, the elder and I will deal with these things. Eat some of this, and then you and Jinhuo will go to the backyard to practice first, okay? Uchiha took the meatballs and nodded obediently, but he knew that it was definitely not a small matter to make those elders come to the house to argue. After Uchiha left, Shisui frowned and asked, "The people of the Great Elder have always been radical. This time they may propose a coup again." "Grandpa, do you think the 3rd generation can stabilize the Great Elder and others?" "Don't worry, a coup is not something that can be accomplished by just talking. Their actions are too big, and there are many people watching near the clan. I believe the 3rd generation already knows the reaction here." Sima Yi did not answer immediately, but helped Shisui analyze it bit by bit. "Hey, everyone knows about the surveillance outside the clan territory, but even so, didn't they discuss and take action in the same way last time? The forms are different. How can we generalize? Besides, your character as the clan leader seems to be a little weak. He and the 2nd elder will not agree to a coup, especially when they know it will never succeed. Moreover, judging from the result of this meeting, the funding has increased after all, and the matter of the 9-tailed fox will also make it difficult for most clan members to speak up. As long as the 3rd generation is willing to show Konoha's strength at this time and give them some extra benefits, it will not be difficult to appease them. Shisui suddenly realized, thought for a moment and asked, "Isn't this the same principle as Grandpa talked about before, using both kindness and force?" "That's right. But those people in the clan who want a coup are not firm in their stance. They themselves don't know what they should want. This is very dangerous." Sima Yi was shocked by the behavior of these people. When they were not as strong as the other side, it would be fine if they didn't stay honest, but they dared to make big moves under the noses of their political enemies to attract attention. They even discussed the coup d'etat openly. The worst thing was that they couldn't block the news. The other party knew about it before they started. They almost did everything that was most taboo in a coup d'etat. This, after hearing what Sima Yi said, Shisui was quite embarrassed. Even he had only wanted everyone to understand the Uchiha and let Konoha and Uchiha coexist, but he didn't know how to do it specifically, and he didn't have any clear demands. Anyway, since the clan can still be stable for the time being, I plan to take this opportunity to continue to contact my former subordinates to help me pay attention to the news outside the clan, so as to prevent those assistants from spreading rumors that are unfavorable to the Uchiha again. Shisui used his brain to make a suggestion, but it was rejected by Sima Yi again. "Now is indeed a good time to take action, but you'd better not contact your subordinates outside the clan for the time being." "Huh? Why? Most of your former subordinates are still on Konoha's side. If you go directly to them, there will be a risk of being exposed. This kind of thing is absolutely not allowed." Sima Yi still remembered what Shisui was like before, and Sima Yi couldn't believe the subordinates he brought with him. Shisui was full of black lines on his forehead. He raised his head and was somewhat unconvinced. Those people on the battlefield were all trustworthy partners. However, when he met Sima Yi's firm gaze, he began to doubt a little. Then he lowered his head to examine his past, but helplessly found that those people did seem to be more inclined towards Konoha. "What about the intelligence outside the clan's territory? Why limit your vision? There are so many people in Konoha, including some poor genin and some ordinary people who are struggling to make ends meet. Do they also have Konoha in their hearts? Do they also believe in the will of fire? It's just passing on some information. How many people would refuse to make a profit just by talking? What's more, even if they are Chunin and Jonin, don't they have something they desire? Money, ninjutsu? As long as they want it, do you worry that you can't drive them? Shisui was shocked, and thinking of what happened last time, he looked at Sima Yi and asked uncertainly, "Could it be you, Grandpa?" Sima Yi chuckled. "You still underestimated the power of the Uchiha. With the help of your money, the intelligence network was prepared very smoothly, although it is not comprehensive yet. But as long as the news inside and outside the clan's territory is not top secret, they can get it, and they can be relied on to manipulate public opinion in the future." This was not a big deal for Sima Yi, but for Shisui he was astonished, as if his mind was opened up, and he admired him in his heart. "With Grandpa here, I feel a lot more relaxed." "Ha ha ha, it's not time for you to relax yet. The new year will be here in a few days. We must do our best to win over the hearts of the people before and after the new year. Whether it is the lineage of the great elder or the second elder, they all depend on you to fight for them." Shisui was a little embarrassed. Others are easy to say, but the second elder and the great elder have very different personalities and are quite stubborn. "I'm afraid they will be difficult to convince." Sima Yi didn't care. Everyone has something to ask for. If they want peace, promise peace. If they want status, promise status. Now the clan leader is in trouble and his prestige has been reduced. It has become increasingly difficult to convince the clan members. It is very likely that you will succeed if you find an excuse to come forward now. As for whether he can do what he promised, that is a matter for the future. He should take the position of clan leader first. "If you want peace, I'll give you peace. If you want status, I'll give you status." Shisui frowned, thinking about this sentence carefully, and suddenly remembered the scene that the third generation promised them every day. It was strange. Isn't this what the Konoha high-level officials often do, although they have never realized it? In addition to a few elders, I will arrange who and to approach the 4 captains of the guard department. As for the rest of the clan, I have also made preparations and will only show my favor at the annual meeting." Grandpa Shisui was moved, opened his mouth and didn't know what to praise, so he could only say, "Thank you, Grandpa. No need to be like this. Small favors can only be appreciated temporarily, but long-term benefits are still needed, and you still have to fight for this yourself." "Where to fight for it?" "Third generation." Shisui's eyes moved slightly, as if thinking about something. The two chatted until noon, until lunchtime. He kept Ichi, and the 3 of them had lunch together. Halfway through the meal, Shisui remembered Sima Yi's suggestion. After dismissing Zua and the others, he asked directly under Sima Yi's gaze, "Ichi, do you think that if a new clan leader is replaced, he can lead the clan out of the predicament?" Sima Yi raised his eyebrows and immediately looked at Shisui. He knew that the other party was deliberately testing him, but this test was a bit obvious. His heart sank, his eyes suddenly changed, he slowly put his hands down, and runes spread silently from under him, and countless runes hidden in the courtyard responded faintly. "Brother Shisui, do you think your father is not doing well?" Ichi was slightly stunned, put down his chopsticks, sat up straight, and asked curiously, "No, I just think that it seems very hard for Lord Fugaku to be the clan leader, and he doesn't seem to be good at dealing with these things. Being the clan leader is a bit of a waste of Lord Fugaku's talent." Ichi smiled at Shisui's serious expression. He nodded without hesitation and said, "If anyone can help Uchiha, I believe that person must be Brother Shisui. I spent a day studying Japanese mythology today and made some settings for the abilities of the Mangekyo. I don't know if it's appropriate." Chapter 59 God-Given Opportunity. "Ah, that's your father, that's your future position." Sima Yi's pupils shrank and he looked at Ichi in disbelief, but Ichi chose Shisui without hesitation. He looked at Shisui sincerely. "Father and those clan elders can't help Uchiha out of trouble. Their thoughts are too narrow. Only people like Brother Shisui can help Uchiha truly integrate into Konoha. If I have to change a clan leader, I will definitely support Brother Shisui." "Thank you, Ichi." Shisui breathed a sigh of relief. He came to Ichi and stroked his short hair. He was sincerely happy for Ichi's support. I promise you, I will try my best to save everything. Yeah. Seeing the two of them sticking together, Sima Yi's eyes twitched, and he silently cancelled the seal array he had set up these days. He picked up the chopsticks again and said in a low voice, "Shisui, come to the study later." Shisui's body trembled, and then he remembered that Sima Yi was also here. He laughed dryly and touched Ichi's head again before returning to his original position. He lowered his head, not daring to look at Sima Yi's expression. Ichi was a little strange, but he didn't ask any more questions. After dinner, the two came to the study. Sima Yi looked at Shisui with a complicated expression. "I heard you say that you have a good relationship. I don't understand and I won't argue with you, but no matter what, your behavior today is too reckless. I usually teach you that a gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. Have you forgotten it? After all, the other party is also the son of the clan leader. What Shisui did is to seize the throne. This kind of temptation is just short of asking the other party directly whether he is willing to support him in changing the dynasty. Sorry, Grandpa, but I believe in Uchi. He will never betray me. It is precisely because I am sure that I will do this, and it is not impulsive." Shisui also remembered Sima Yi's previous teachings, but he was willing to believe in Uchi only when facing him. Sima Yi was speechless, sighed and said nothing more. After all, judging from the results, Shisui was right, and Uchi really didn't seem to care about these. "You have your own judgment, and I am not in a position to say much. But you should be more cautious about this kind of thing, and you must not take it as a routine." "Grandpa, don't worry, Ichi is the only one who is special. If it were someone else, I would never do this." Shisui nodded obediently. He did not think that he was the kind of person who would easily trust others. Sima Yi looked at Shisui deeply, but he had other plans in his mind. "Well, since you have already tested the results, go and communicate with him more." After that, Sima Yi waved his hand to let Shisui leave. Shisui smiled honestly and did not dare to argue. He could only say, "Okay." After Shisui left, Sima Yi immediately called Yingshu and ordered him, "Go outside and find out how the clan leader's family discussed it." "Yes." Yingshu nodded and agreed, and then set off immediately. This was not the first time he had done this, and even Jinhuo did not know. After all, Jinhuo was connected with Tuo, and Sima Yi was not confident in incorporating it into the intelligence network, so he avoided Jinhuo for these things. Yingshu acted quickly and brought a piece of information in less than 10 minutes. The clan leader and the elders have finished arguing. The specific content of the argument is unknown. Someone from the Anbu came during the process, and then the clan spread the news that the Hokage will select 2 teams from the clan to enter the Anbu. 2 teams. Sima Yi pondered for a moment and fell into thought. Entering the Anbu is not as simple as being close to the Hokage. Many high-level tasks are not open to the lower levels, except for a few powerful ninjas who may have access to them. More high-level tasks are only issued by the Anbu. Even if the ninjas of the same strength can enter the Anbu to work, the opportunities and rewards they get will far exceed others. There are many special tasks with higher returns and low risks. The Hokage also gives priority to the Anbu, which is why the Anbu has so much funding. Akaya wants to enter the Anbu, not just for face. It's still a little short. Sima Yi looked at the information and stroked his long beard and commented. Yingshu was puzzled, but he was very sensible and didn't ask more. "It's okay. You go down first and pay attention to the situation over there. Report back if there's any news." "Yes." "Wait." Yingshu was about to leave when Sima Yi called him back. He turned around and looked at Sima Yi in confusion. Sima Yi stood up and took out a scroll from under the table and handed it to Yingshu, saying, "This is the method of practicing the Phoenix Fire technique. It also contains Shisui's practice experience. Take it back and practice it well. If you don't understand something, you can find time to ask Shisui." Yingshu was delighted and took it quickly. "Thank you, Grandpa Yi." His father had left behind the method of practicing the Phoenix Fire technique, but Shisui's practice experience was quite rare. After Yingshu left, Sima Yi didn't dwell on it too much and quietly studied the sealing technique. Shisui's behavior reminded him that the seal covering the entire courtyard was still too slow to react and not accurate enough. He also needed to set up ceiling arrays in several frequently used rooms in advance in case of emergency. After he devoted himself to studying, time passed quickly. In a blink of an eye, it was already dusk, and it was still white outside. Suddenly, there was a dinging sound. Sima Yi looked up and saw a black cat with a bell on it. Pushed open the window and jumped in. "It's so cold." Meow. The black cat was wearing a short thin coat and spoke human language. It was Hua's ninja cat. Although it was called a cat, its body was very broad and a bit like a dog. "Did Hua ask you to deliver the letter?" It was not the first time Sima Yi saw it, so he did not feel strange. He stood up and closed the window, and asked naturally, "Don't talk about work as soon as you open your mouth." Meow. The black cat was a little dissatisfied, and rubbed directly to the stove, and then sat down decadently. "Who, that kid, wants to go to eat barbecue with others, but asked me to come to deliver the letter to you in such a cold day. It's really too much." Meow. Sima Yi smiled and did not mind. Instead, he cleared the things on the table to make room for it. Then he casually took out a banknote worth 1,000 taels and handed it to the black cat, stroking it with his other hand. "I still need you to provide the intelligence." The black cat smelled the smell of money, and his eyes lit up immediately, allowing Sima Yi's hand to wander over it. "You are still sensible." Meow. The black cat took the money and immediately became energetic, shaking off the letter stuck between his clothes and fur. Sima Yi opened the letter and nodded with satisfaction. The letter told him that the Hokage had dispatched a large number of Anbu this morning, and in just one morning, many spies in the village were captured, including the one who escaped last time. Then came the reaction within the clan. Although the voice of the coup was suppressed, the great elders and others were still furious, and directly recalled all those who had been sent to the ninja hospital. Ha ha ha. What a godsend! Sima Yi was overjoyed. He put down the letter and kept walking around the black cat. "If you're not in a hurry, just eat here tonight. I'll have someone buy you a cup of mute yon liao drink." "Really? Although you look like a bad guy, you're unexpectedly a good person." Meow. "But if one serving is not enough, can you give me a few more?" Meow. Sima Yi laughed and couldn't help but sighed. What a greedy little guy. Chapter 60, Scoring Twice. "Is this milk?" At night, Shisui and Uchi came over when they saw the extra fat cat in the house. Shisui raised his hand and stroked Milk's body and sighed. "It's been a long time since we last met. It seems that Brother Hui has been living a good life recently. I feel like you seem to be saying bad things about me." Meow. Although Milk was dissatisfied, he did not reject Shisui's intimate actions. Ichi stared blankly, seeming to be very interested. "Little boy, what are you looking at? I am not someone who can be touched by anyone." Meow. Milk glanced away from Ichi's gaze and pointed his butt at him. "Haha, Milk, this is Uchiha Ichi, the son of the chief of the Fugaku clan." Shisui smiled and introduced him. "What, you are the son of Lord Fugaku?" Meow. Milk's expression changed, and he quickly turned back, leaning forward and rubbing his body directly on Ichi's thigh. "I see. No wonder I felt so close to you when I saw you." Meow. Shisui's mouth twitched. Although it was not the first time he knew the faces of these ninja cats, it was still difficult to remain calm when he saw them again. Ichi just smiled when he saw this, and then he couldn't help but touch him. Milk closed his eyes obediently, and made gurgling sounds from time to time, as if he was enjoying it very much. "If Ichi is interested, you can ask Milk to take you to the cat grandmother's shop when you have time." Although these ninja cats are not summon beasts, they are also very powerful. They are the suppliers of a lot of information and weapons for our Uchiha clan. Ichi touched Milk and nodded obediently, but it was obvious that he didn't have the time and mood at the moment. After dinner, Ichi left Shisui's house. Although Milk was reluctant to leave, it was too cold outside, and he didn't want to leave because he was used to staying in the house. Shisui was called to the study by Sima Yi again. He handed 2 pieces of intelligence to Shisui and said, "Take a look at this. 2 teams of Anbu, arrest the spies." Shisui quickly scanned them and said immediately, "It seems that this is the kindness and intimidation imposed by the 3rd generation?" "Yes, but the focus for you is not here, but on the actions of the Great Elder." "Great Elder?" Shisui was stunned, and looked at it again. Only then did he notice the matter of the medical ninja. He frowned and said, This kind of behavior may lead to criticism, and the transfer consultant is likely to take advantage of it. Sima Yi nodded in agreement with Shisui's analysis. He continued, the bottom line of the third generation is that he must not force the Uchiha to the point of a coup. Now that he has just appeased the Uchiha, he will not allow anyone to provoke him again, but the villagers' talk is inevitable. He stared at Shisui as he spoke, so this is a good opportunity. You can take the initiative to volunteer to help him solve this problem. Shisui's expression moved slightly, and he did not respond immediately. Instead, he thought carefully. After a moment, he gradually reacted. Grandpa means that he wants me to take this opportunity to contact the Great Elder. Ha ha ha, good. Sima Yi nodded with satisfaction and said bluntly, it seems that you still remember my instructions. The trust of the Hokage is the most important. Shisui felt a little embarrassed when he heard this. It's thanks to my grandfather's guidance during the day. Grandpa wanted me to persuade the elder, but rashly contacting him may arouse the suspicion of the third generation. Now that such a thing has happened, it is indeed a rare opportunity to persuade the elder to talk about other things. I will ask the third generation tomorrow. It's not difficult to persuade the third generation, but how can you persuade the elder? Shisui pondered. The persuasion mentioned by Sima Yi was not only about the position of the clan leader, but also about the matter of the medical ninja today. He was sure to persuade the other party to support him to become the clan leader, but the latter might be more troublesome than the former. Use the will of fire? At a certain moment, Shisui actually thought of the will of fire, and then he laughed. Sima Yi was delighted to see the change in his expression, and there was some expectation in his eyes. Seeing this, Shisui shook his head and explained, I just suddenly thought of the will of fire, but it should be difficult to convince a stubborn person like the Great Elder with this reason, right? Shisui smiled awkwardly, but he saw a trace of shock in Sima Yi's eyes. No way. Come closer and listen to me carefully. You only need to do this after you see the Great Elder. Sandai-sama, I heard that the Great Elder privately recalled the medical ninjas for support. This behavior has brought shame to the Uchiha clan and seriously endangered Konoha's partners. I really can't stand by and watch. I beg you to order me to detain him immediately. The next day, in the Hokage's office, Shisui met the third generation. He spoke sharply, stated the pros and cons, and even contained anger in his voice. The third generation looked at Shisui with an anxious face, feeling strange and relieved at the same time. It was worth it for him to do so much for the Uchiha in the past few days. Being at home but still worried about the future of Konoha, this is the person who truly possesses the will of fire. However, he still sighed and said, the misunderstanding between the village and the Uchiha has been around for a long time. It is understandable that he behaved like that. How can I punish him for such a thing? But, Shisui looked up. His expression was excited and he was very unwilling. Shisui, the Uchiha people are also partners in the village. I can't force him in this way. The Sandai said, slowly getting up and walking to the window. He turned his back to Shisui and continued, so for Konoha, I decided to go and discuss with him in person, hoping that he would help everyone again for the sake of my old bones. Shisui looked at the hunched body of the Sandai with a moved expression. He gritted his teeth and immediately stood up and said, no, Lord Sandai, let me go. I will persuade the Great Elder to agree, no matter what method. You? The Sandai turned around and looked at Shisui in surprise, with some embarrassment on his face. You are also an Uchiha. Doing this will make it difficult for you to gain a foothold in the clan. For Konoha, for Lord Sandai, this sacrifice is nothing. The Sandai frowned and hesitated. Seeing this, Shisui said again, please Lord Sandai, please give me a chance. Give Uchiha a chance. Seeing Shisui's statement, the Sandai seemed to sigh helplessly, nodded and said, well, since you insist on doing so, then let you try it once. If you fail, I will find a way. Yes, thank you, Sandai. Shisui lowered his head, feeling a little bored. He really wanted to see the other party refuse and decline 3 times, but he didn't expect that he just insisted a little and the other party agreed. If there is anything you need from me, just ask. Seeing the Sandai made a promise, Shisui thought about it, hesitated for a moment and said, if the elder agrees to let the medical ninjas of the clan come back, can their tasks be a little easier? The Sandai nodded. He had expected this request, and immediately said, "This is a mistake of the medical department. I will discuss it with the assistant of the transfer dormitory. There is another thing. The clan members are not good at communication and always conflict with the injured, so I hope they can provide support in the form of a team after they return." The Sandai was stunned, thought for a moment and agreed. After all, the Uchiha were not good at communication. If they stayed together, they could remind each other to restrain themselves. Shisui was overjoyed and said quickly, "Thank you, Third Master. If that's the case, the Great Elder will definitely agree. Then I'll ask you to go there." Shisui: "Yes, I won't be able to update until 8 o'clock tomorrow. Please be informed." 8 o'clock in the evening. Chapter 61. Konoha is Uchiha's Konoha. It's almost New Year. Why are things getting more and more expensive? Really, these people are so black-hearted. The rice at home is not enough. The damn profiteers have raised the rice price again. It would be great if these profiteers were caught by the Uchiha people. When will the snow stop? It's so cold. After leaving the Hokage building, Shisui walked on the street and listened carefully to the conversations of passers-by. Most of them were about trivial matters in life, and he didn't hear much about medical ninjas. Sure enough, it seems that he has been suppressed by the third generation. Grandpa's guess is correct. This time it can be confirmed that the Hokage stands on the side of the Uchiha. Shisui breathed a sigh of relief and walked back to the clan land on the snow. The tribesmen who came and went also discussed the trivial matters of life. Many of them were sad, and Shisui listened quietly. He walked all the way to the courtyard of the Great Elder. The courtyard door was open. Uchiha Yashiro just came out from inside and looked at Shisui outside the door with some surprise. "Shisui, why are you here?" Yashiro was a little confused. Shisui rarely visited the Great Elder at this time. "Uncle Yasashi, I have something to discuss with the Great Elder." "Is it about the medical ninja?" Shisui was a little surprised and nodded. As expected of Uncle Yasashi, "You guessed it right away. It's probably not something else that can make you come. But I still advise you that the Great Elder is still angry and probably won't listen to you." Yasashi didn't stop him, but made way for Shisui to come in. "Thank you, but even so, I still want to try it." "It's up to you. I'll continue my patrol, but I still have to say that the people of Konoha don't deserve you to be so nice to them." Yasashi sighed and left. This time it's not for the people of Konoha, but for Uchiha. Shisui looked at Yasashi's leaving back and replied silently in his heart. After entering the courtyard, the attendant who was guarding the side quickly went to report. "The Great Elder has a high status and is old, so he needs to be taken care of." There are also many guards in the courtyard. In the entire Uchiha clan, if there is a place with the least Konoha spies, it is only here with the Great Elder. Fugaku and the others would accommodate the ninjas who were monitoring them because of their forbearance, but the Great Elder would not. Those who were outside the clan land were fine, but those who dared to approach here, whether they were Anbu or Root, disappeared. Great Elder. After passing the corridor, Shisui saw the Great Elder sitting quietly in the hall. He stopped outside the door to salute, but heard the Great Elder also teasing, "It's rare that you come to see an old man like me at this time." The future of Uchiha and Konoha depends on the Great Elder. Shisui has to come. The Great Elder sneered at the words, waved away all the attendants, and asked directly, "Are you also here for the medical ninja?" "Yes, I hope the Great Elder can persuade those clansmen to continue to support the ninja hospital." Shisui. The Great Elder's face changed. He looked up and stared at Shisui, with some disappointment in his eyes. Didn't he know that recalling those people would cause controversy? Didn't he know that doing so would give people an excuse? Fugaku can't see clearly, Yashiro can't see clearly, and even you can't understand why I do this? No, I understand. Shisui suddenly raised his head and looked directly at the Great Elder. His eyes were firm, and the three Magatama appeared at some point. "I know that it is definitely not your decision alone, but the common voice of all the clan members who went to support the ninja hospital." The Great Elder paused. His anger gradually disappeared, and he looked at Shisui in surprise. This young man could actually tell the real reason in one sentence. "I never thought that Fugaku and Yasashi's talents are so different from yours, and they are not just ninja talents." The elder sighed. His tone gradually calmed down, and then asked, "Since you know, why did you come to me again?" At this point, I will not force them to go back, and Fugaku cannot force them to go back either. The elder has been managing the clan for many years and has accumulated prestige over time. As long as you speak, the rest of the things will be easy to handle. The elder asked curiously, "Do you have a way to persuade them?" Shisui breathed a sigh of relief and immediately said, "As long as the elder cooperates, I can let them go back." Unexpectedly, the elder's tone suddenly changed. He crossed his arms and snorted coldly, "Then I won't go either." It's not that easy. Why should I do this for those guys and let the clan members continue to suffer grievances? I see. No wonder the third generation said that the elder is narrow-minded. Seeing this, Shisui stopped half-kneeling and sat outside the door to look at the elder. "What did you say? Narrow-minded? What? Are you going to tell me about Sarutobi's will of fire?" The elder's voice gradually became low. He watched Shisui's anger rising, and his breathing became a little rapid. "I remember that you are the one who likes to talk about the will of fire the most in the clan. If that's the case, you can go back. What about the will of fire? Have you forgotten who founded Konoha and why the name Konoha came from?" Shisui did not retreat, but asked in a loud voice. Konoha was of course founded by the Senju and Uchiha, and the name Konoha was also given by our ancestors. The elder narrowed his eyes slightly, as if recalling the past. "Great elder, the will of fire has never been Sarutobi's will of fire, but Uchiha's will of fire. Uchiha is not Konoha's Uchiha, but Konoha is Uchiha's Konoha. Now that the Senju is gone, if Konoha does not rely on Uchiha, does it have to rely on those insects? We founded Konoha, but the great elder wants to abandon the past glory of Uchiha." "Abandon Konoha? You?" A sharp shout woke up the great elder. He looked at Shisui in shock, and couldn't believe that these were the words Shisui could say. If he didn't know the other party's strength, he would even suspect that the other party was controlled by someone with an illusion. The difference in personality before and after is too big. "I can't believe you said that. My blood is boiling." The elder exhaled a breath of hot air, then looked at Shisui with a look of satisfaction. "Uchiha is lucky to have a junior like you. Well, I'll help you this time. Tell me, how do you plan to persuade those people to return to the ninja hospital?" Seeing the elder give in, Shisui also breathed a sigh of relief. Sima Yi was right. What this kind of elder cares about most is glory and face. As long as he can be suppressed on these and make up for the interests of the family, the other party has no reason to refuse. The third generation has agreed that as long as they are willing to go back, he will discuss with the assistant to transfer to the dormitory, and the previous things will not happen again. "This is as it should be," the elder said lightly, not touched. "The clan members will provide support in the form of a team, and—" Shisui suddenly stopped talking, attracting the attention of the elder. "I will pay to compensate Konoha for its previous actions." The great elder narrowed his eyes, a little confused. "For Konoha? For Uchiha?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 Kaleidoscope. Facing Shisui's eyes, the elder kept looking up and down, and finally noticed something wrong. After living for so many years, he thought he had only misjudged Fugaku, but today he realized that he had also misjudged Shisui before. You pay for Konoha's mistakes, and you actually go to this extent. What do you want to do? He looked at Shisui, not angry, but his yellow eyes were filled with surprise, expectation, and even a little nervousness. "No, I'm just for Uchiha." Shisui repeated his purpose again. He adjusted his sitting posture and looked directly at the elder. "I want to save Konoha, and even more so, I want to save Uchiha. I want to save everything. I want to control all the clan members in the clan. I want to become the clan leader." Ha ha ha! The elder's hands trembled, the three magatama spun in his eyes. He excitedly looked at Shisui's arrogant laughter regardless of his image. His hanging heart finally let go. His mood was extremely complicated, but he enjoyed this feeling very much. He saw the true meaning of Uchiha and Shisui. This is the second purpose of my coming today. I want to ask the Great Elder to help me replace the chief of the clan, Fugaku. I see, you have already realized this, but Fugaku is the clan chief we all supported at the beginning. Why should I abandon him and choose you? After a long time, the Great Elder calmed down and asked in a light tone, because I can, and only I can, I will lead the Uchiha to regain the glory of the past. I will let the people of Konoha know that only the Uchiha are the ones who can be truly relied on. They are the people of Uchiha. That is the wish of the ancestors, to build a Konoha where children can grow up safely. Shisui remained calm. His eyes were still firm. Everything was so calm and confident. I recognize your realization, but this is not enough. Fugaku's position does not only come from our support, but also from his strength in the battlefield. The leader of the Uchiha can only be a strong man. I have more than just realization. Shisui did not retreat. He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the three magatama spun in his eyes and gradually turned into a shrike. The Great Elder looked into his eyes. The terrifying pupil power seemed to have corroded his brain, leaving him in darkness, with only the pair of eyes hanging high in the night sky. Mangekyo. The Great Elder trembled as he spoke the name. The forbidden power of the Uchiha clan. The last time he saw such eyes was decades ago. He stood up tremblingly, walked to Shisui step by step, held up Shisui's cheek with his old hands, and approached carefully. Shisui could even feel the other person's breath. He looked at the Great Elder with excited eyes, fearing that something might happen to him, and quickly put away the Mangekyo and said, "Great Elder, please calm down." The Mangekyo was gone, and after being reminded by Shisui, the Great Elder gradually calmed down, but his hands were still shaking slightly. You know what these eyes mean, right? I've read the records of the clan. This is the legendary power of our Uchiha. Our ancestor Madara once used it to fight the first generation. The elder shook his head, knowing that Shisui didn't know much, but he didn't explain immediately, but asked, "Who else knows that you awakened these eyes?" Shisui replied calmly, "You are the second person to know about this, except me." That's good. Remember, don't let other people know about these eyes for the time being, whether it's the third generation or the clan members. The elder knew a lot. Although he was radical, he was not a fool. Shisui was too young. If the Konoha high level knew about this, the elder was really afraid that Shisui would be killed by those people. He had seen too much of this kind of darkness. Yes, Great Elder, then I, who have these eyes, should be qualified to be the clan leader, right? Of course, I can't refute it. I will let Yashiro and Yangs fully support you. As for me, I will only help you if you are likely to succeed. Uchiha, you must not split at this time. The Great Elder had experienced an internal split, the brutality of which far exceeded the 3 ninja world wars, and they have not recovered until now. That's enough. Thank you, Great Elder. After saying that, Shisui stood up and prepared to leave, but saw the Great Elder also stood up and said, "No hurry, you follow me first." After saying that, he walked along the corridor to a bedroom. Although Shisui was puzzled, he followed closely. After the two came in, they saw the Great Elder casually patting a vase, and then saw a wooden shelf flipped to reveal a secret room. What is this? Shisui looked at the Great Elder curiously, and the Great Elder did not respond and walked straight in. The secret room was not big, with dense runes on the walls, and there were only some well-preserved books and scrolls inside. The elder took out a book and a scroll with ease, stroked them lovingly, and then handed them to Shisui. This is the Book of Inheritance and the Forbidden Scroll. The insights left by the clan members who have awakened the Mangekyo in the past are all here. Some of them were left by the ancestor Madara. As for this scroll, it records some forbidden techniques of the clan. So far, only Fugaku and I have seen it. Now that you have awakened these eyes, you are also qualified to experience them. Speaking of the past, the elder couldn't help but sigh. If there hadn't been that civil strife, Uchiha wouldn't have become like this. Shisui took the book and scroll and comforted him. Don't sigh, leave the future of Uchiha to me. I thought the elder would be very pleased, but he frowned and scolded, don't rely too much on those eyes. They will make you lose your sight. These are all left in the book. You must read it carefully and take it as a warning. Yes, I will. Shisui's neck shrank and he nodded repeatedly. You can try to practice what is in the scroll, but don't let other clan members see it. Don't use those forbidden techniques unless it is absolutely necessary. The price and effect are all in it. Yes, Great Elder. After saying that, the Great Elder continued to give instructions. The two of them left the secret room. Before leaving, he called Shisui again. I will pay for the medical ninja, in your name. Shisui was moved. He looked at the Great Elder with a hint of gratitude in his eyes. I still have some savings. As for your money, there should be other uses. The Great Elder smiled and returned to the hall to sit down. He looked at Shisui standing in the corridor and said, just do it, Akaya. No, the future of Konoha depends on you. Shisui was silent. He slowly bowed and then turned to leave. After he left, the Great Elder took out a few pieces of paper from his arms, read them for a while, and then burned them bit by bit. Then he called someone over and instructed, go and inform them not to inquire about Shisui's news anymore. Yes. Chapter 63, Inheritance of Forbidden Techniques. Grandpa, this is what happened. The Great Elder has agreed to help me and has given me these things. After leaving the Great Elder's house, Shisui returned to his own study and told Sima Yi what happened. Sima Yi took the book and scroll but did not read them. Instead, he looked at Shisui and said sternly, you shouldn't have come back so soon. Have you been to the Hokage? Shisui's smile froze. He wanted to tell Sima Yi the good news, but he overlooked this point. I'm sorry, Grandpa, I overlooked it. Sima Yi did not want to blame Shisui. Seeing this, he waved his hand and comforted him. It's too late to regret now. I just hope you can stay vigilant at all times. Yes, Grandpa. Should I go to the third generation to report it now? No need. You can go to the Great Elder again. After leaving the Great Elder's house, go to the third generation. Someone will help you explain the rest. Shisui suddenly realized and immediately nodded and left. After he left, Sima Yi began to read the Book of Inheritance. Mangekyo Sharingan? Is it the advanced form of Sharingan mentioned by chance in the clan history? Sima Yi noticed something was wrong when Shisui just talked about it. Shisui seemed to think that Sima Yi knew that he had awakened the Mangekyo. In fact, he only knew the name Uchiha Shisui and very little basic information about this world. Otherwise, he would not have asked the other party if he was Uchiha Shisui when they first met. It's just that there are other things at the moment, so he didn't interrupt the other party to ask directly. And when he opened the record, he found that these eyes seemed to be extremely powerful. Even though the Uchiha clan has many talents, there are less than 10 recorded Mangekyos in the past 1,000 years. It seems that Shisui's strength is even stronger than I thought. He turned the pages one by one. The book recorded the names of those people and the time when the Mangekyo awakened, and used it to constantly summarize and speculate under what circumstances the Mangekyo could be awakened. When you are in a desperate situation and great pain, these eyes will respond to your deep desire, desperate situation and pain. Sima Yi looked at this description and thought of Shisui. The 11-year-old boy had been on the battlefield for many years and had made a great reputation. He must have experienced desperate situations and tasted bitterness. He continued to read. The book described the Mangekyo as the legendary power of the Uchiha clan, which possessed extremely powerful power. The most detailed record was of Uchiha Madara at the time. It was evaluated as having power close to that of a god. God? Sima Yi frowned slightly. He didn't quite understand whether this evaluation was realistic or simply a compliment. Any of these ninjas who appeared in his world could be called gods, but the comparison between ninjas was somewhat sparse and ordinary. The last time he fought against the Chunin in the military camp was the most intuitive time for him to feel the ninja battle. Compared with Shisui, these people had obvious differences in the power of their techniques, but he had not yet found anyone whose power could be called a god among ninjas. He once joined forces with the first-generation Hokage, Senju Hashirama, the god of the ninja world, to unify the land of fire and establish Konoha. After this paragraph, there is a description of his past battles with the Mangekyo, saying that he has the power to move mountains and fill the sea, and can hit the other side of the sea with one blow. Sima Yi frowned, and he found that he seemed to have overlooked something. In the past, when he compared the strength of Konoha and Uchiha, he only looked at the number of Jonin, Chunin and Jinin on both sides. At most, he considered the unique blood advantage of Uchiha, but even so, these people were just elite soldiers in armor in his eyes, and he doubled or tripled them when calculating. But the appearance of the Mangekyo seemed to break this calculation. If his strength is really as terrible as described in the book, wouldn't one person be able to defeat thousands of troops? The first-generation Hokage can be compared with Uchiha Madara, and the third-generation Hokage is also known as the strongest Hokage. Could it be that Sima Yi thought more and more, and various conjectures gradually flashed through his mind, constantly overturning and rebuilding previous plans? After a moment, he had to shake his head and give up. He couldn't judge without enough information, so he could only put it aside for the time being. If the third generation is too powerful, then we should wait for him to die of old age. If you can't beat him, then wait him out. For Sima Yi, forbearance is already a common thing. After all, Shisui is still young. With this thought, he put the book aside and opened the scroll. The scroll records 9 forbidden techniques, all of which were left by people who awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan in the past. These techniques are the power that resides in the Mangekyo, and it is speculated that they may be hidden in the blood of the Uchiha. The 9 forbidden techniques are Aim no Miya, Ninjago no 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 no, Izanami, Izanaki, Tsukimi, Amaterasu, Takamagahara, Tsukimi no no no, and Yasen no Spear. Then Sima Yi looked at the detailed introduction of Aim no Miya. Aim no Miya. After activating this technique, the power of all techniques will be greatly increased in the next period of time. The degree of increase and duration depends on the user's pupil power. Usage conditions: more than 3 Magatama. The cost of using: the owner of the 3 Magatama will lose 1 eye of the light. If the owner of the Mangekyo does not awaken this power, Aim no Mishu, a lot of pupil power will be consumed, and the speed of losing light will be accelerated. This. Sima Yi read the conditions, effects and costs of the other 8 forbidden techniques in detail, and felt horrified. Aim no Mishu is fine, but the most terrifying ones are Izanami and Izanami, who actually have the power to rewrite reality and fate. Of course, the more powerful the technique, the more terrifying the price. Both the 3 Magatama and the Mangekyo will lose their light immediately. Is this a ninjutsu that can be created by humans? Sima Yi fell into doubt. He had read through thousands of ninjutsu in Shisui's family. Most of them were applications of chakra, tending to be destructive, and a few tended to be functional. But compared with this technique, it was a world of difference. It seems that it is not only Shisui who ignores the power of Uchiha, but also me. Sima Yi immediately examined himself and found that he had not really understood Uchiha, let alone the ninja world. His thoughts and vision were still limited. We need to wait for Shisui to come back and discuss it carefully. We also need to make some changes to the plan. After writing down the methods of practicing these forbidden techniques, Sima Yi put away the books and scrolls. He stood in front of the desk and looked at the books placed on both sides. He couldn't help but sigh. Practicing martial arts can restrain tigers and leopards, and gathering wisdom can conquer the world. After that, he changed his clothes and went to the backyard. There were 2 figures in the backyard shuttling at high speed. It was Jinhuo and Yingshu who were practicing here. Both of them were holding long swords and chasing each other in the open space. The collision of irons made clanging sounds and sparks flew. With the insight of the single Magatama Sharingan, Sima Yi easily captured the movements of the 2. He soon found that Jinhuo's strength was far above Yingshu, and he was almost always guiding the other's actions. What? There's a flaw. Explanation of Uchiha's forbidden techniques in this chapter. The anime mentions Izanami's power to change reality. It's hard to imagine that it's a man-made ninjutsu in the Uchiha situation. I'm more inclined to believe that a certain Uchiha awakened to the Mangekyo ability in a desperate situation, and he found a way to pass down this technique. Based on this assumption, other Mangekyos that have appeared in the past should also be able to record the technique, but the consumption of Mangekyo pupil techniques is too great, and ordinary Sharingan will go blind after using them. Only Mangekyo can use some pupil techniques that are not very powerful, or perform these pupil techniques at the level of eternal Mangekyo to slowly recover. This also explains why Madara recovered to 2 eyes after using Izanami, and why Ichi and Madara can use Yasukani no Magatama. This is set as the ability of Kyunkyi. Chapter 64, The Hidden Sima Yi. It seemed that Sima Yi's arrival distracted Yingshu, and he immediately revealed a huge flaw. Jinhuo shouted, suddenly knocked his sword away, and then put the sword on his neck. If you are distracted in battle, you will die. Jinhuo looked at Yingshu with a serious expression. He had been on the battlefield and experienced life and death, so he was extremely sensitive to such behavior. Sorry, brother Jinhuo. Yingshu did not argue. He lowered his head and apologized immediately. Jinhuo saw that his forehead was sweating and his breath was disturbed. His tone gradually eased a little. Take a rest first, and continue later. Yingshu nodded, pointed behind Jinhuo and said, okay, brother Jinhuo, but the butler is here. He should have a task for us, right? After Yingshu reminded him, Jinhuo's face changed, and he turned back quickly. He was horrified to find that if he hadn't seen it with his naked eyes, he would have no idea of Sima Yi's arrival. Master Yi, your eyes? Jinhuo stepped forward and suddenly found that Sima Yi had opened his Sharingan. Although it was only a single Magatama, he had clearly heard that the other party was just an ordinary Genin who had not been able to open his Sharingan in his 50s. Seeing the two exclaiming, Sima Yi smiled and explained casually, I accidentally opened it on the battlefield before, but I am old and I probably won't have the chance to go to the battlefield again in the future. Yingshu looked a little disappointed when he heard this, as if he remembered something sad. Jinhuo thought to himself, I don't know if it is amazing talent to be able to open the Sharingan in my 50s. However, his face was very enthusiastic. He approached Sima Yi and asked, Master Yi, do you have a task assigned by Lord Shisui to give us? Ha. I have been in the study for a long time. I just want to stretch my muscles. Jinhuo was a little disappointed to hear that there was no task, but he became very excited after hearing the second half of the sentence. With a swoosh, Jinhuo leaped back to the open space, then waved his sword and shouted, since Master Yi wants to exercise, let me be your opponent. Don't worry, I will be very careful. Sima Yi raised his eyebrows, and he could hardly hide the smile on Jinhuo's face. No, brother Jinhuo, if you hurt the housekeeper, Master Shisui will be angry. Yingshu's face changed, and he hurriedly stood in the middle, fearing that Sima Yi would really go over. He also had a single Magatama, and was completely suppressed by the opponent in terms of physical skills, ninjutsu, and genjutsu. If both sides used their full strength, he would not be able to walk a few rounds in front of Jinhuo. And what about Sima Yi? If he didn't use the ceiling formation arranged in the courtyard, he didn't think he would be Jinhuo's opponent. Although he claimed that he could live for another 20 years, his body in his 50s had begun to decline significantly even for a ninja. Since he couldn't beat him, he would wait for Shisui. Sima Yi looked at Jinhuo meaningfully and said, no, I'm here to see how your ninjutsu practice is going, so that I can mention it to Shisui later. If he has time, he will come to teach you. Mentioning Shisui's teaching, the two's eyes lit up, especially Jinhuo. Although he couldn't compete with Sima Yi, he still enthusiastically took Sima Yi to the small pond where they often practiced ninjutsu. The double Magatama Sharingan has the ability to copy ninjutsu. Although Jinhuo is not very old, he has copied more than a dozen ninjutsu on the battlefield. If he didn't master a few types of chakra attributes, the number of ninjutsu would be several times more. How about the Phoenix Fire technique? Yingshu has also been practicing this ninjutsu recently. It happens that I also know some of it. I'll perform it for you to see together. Jinhuo patted his chest and raised his head and asked. Yingshu looked strange, and he looked at Sima Yi for advice. Then let's use the Phoenix Fire technique. You can use all your strength and let me take a closer look. Sima Yi naturally had no objection. He could also take this opportunity to observe the power of Jinhuo's ninjutsu, then watch. Fire-style Phoenix Fire technique. Seeing that the two agreed, Jinhuo grinned and moved his 10 fingers in a row. Ziyin Zuchu Mao Yin, He made 4 seals in 1 second, at a very fast speed. While making seals, he also mobilized his chakra. After 6 seals, he opened his mouth and spit out 8 small fireballs that suddenly flew out and rushed towards the iced surface from multiple angles at a very fast speed. Boom! The fireballs hit the iced surface with a violent sound, and the ice layer creaked and cracked, splashing a lot of water and bringing up bursts of white mist. The power of the Phoenix Fire technique is relatively dispersed. Compared with the Great Fireball, it is more suitable for large-scale group attacks. If you can do it like me, it's just so-so. How about it? Very handsome. Jin Huo laughed and put his hands on his hips, very satisfied with the power of the technique. Sima Yi frowned slightly and thought of Shisui and Hua's Great Dragon Fire technique, as well as Shisui's Great Fire Extinguishing technique on the high platform. The exaggerated flames covered the entire venue like a sea of fire, almost illuminating the entire sky. After comparing before and after, he found that Shisui was indeed a god in the eyes of these ordinary people. Well, not bad. How about Yingshu? How is your learning? However, Sima Yi did not attack the other party directly, but nodded to show encouragement, and then looked at Yingshu. Yingshu immediately responded, I can use it initially, but the power and the number of fireballs are not enough, far less than that of brother Jin Huo. As he spoke, he also demonstrated. His speed was even worse than that of Jin Huo, only a little more than 3 seals per second. Fire-style Phoenix Fairy Fire technique. 4 fireballs flew out, hitting the broken ice and bringing up white mist and water splashes. Compared with the 2, no matter the speed, power, or number of fireballs, they were not as good as Jin Huo. The difference was obvious. Sima Yi used a single Magatama to quietly observe the difference in the flow of chakra when the 2 performed ninjutsu, and then began to recall the method of performing Fengxian fire. He had read thousands of ninjutsu and had his own understanding. The power of ninjutsu depends not only on the amount of chakra, but also on the degree of control of chakra. Yingshu, remember the position I pointed to. When performing Fengxian fire, start to control the chakra from here. Don't use too much force, and then let go from here. Sima Yi raised a finger and slid it on Yingshu's body, and added, use the depth of my strength to confirm the strength of chakra. Focus on controlling chakra and don't concentrate too much on making hand seals. Yingshu was stunned, then reacted and nodded repeatedly, firmly remembering every touch. After Sima Yi raised his hand, he immediately began to make hand seals. After 6 hand seals, 8 fireballs with less power quickly hit the ice surface. Jin Huo widened his eyes and looked at the 2 people, his eyes full of disbelief. Iju, you didn't cheat me with Master Yi, did you? Sima Yi shook his head and said, Iju's control of chakra is still a little poor. Then he looked at Jin Huo. You remember my strength, then make 4 seals, Zizuchu Yin, and pay attention to controlling chakra. How do you perform with only 4 seals? Jin Huo was surprised, but Sima Yi did not explain, but slid directly. Jin Huo immediately shut up and carefully felt the acupuncture points and meridians corresponding to the strength and sliding direction. Zizuchu Yin Fire-style Phoenix Fire technique. 8 fireballs flew out suddenly, but the power was slightly weaker than before. Simplified seals. I really used it. Jin Huo stared at the water in a daze and exclaimed, the seals are just to help control the chakra. As long as there is enough control, maybe no seals will work. Sima Yi had a further understanding of ninjutsu. After speaking, he stroked his beard and left, leaving behind a profound back. Damn, so cool. Jin Huo showed an admiring look. Of course, he had heard of simplified hand seals, but that was only possible if one was very familiar with ninjutsu and could accurately control chakra. This level was at least a jonin. Sima Yi only taught him once and he barely performed it. Could it be that Mr. Yi is actually a hidden talent? Chapter 65. If you have this ability, how did you lose? Shisui returned a little later than Sima Yi expected, and there was no movement until the afternoon. Why did you come back so late? Did something happen again? Sima Yi was curious. It was just a process, it shouldn't take so long. Shisui smiled naively, his expression somewhat excited. In order to let the 3rd generation know my difficulties, I left the house of the Great Elder and went back again. If it is counted as the first time, this can be counted as the third visit to the Great Elder, right? Sima Yi was speechless, but seeing Shisui's expectant eyes, he could only nod and sigh. Well, you did a good job. He, the third generation and assistant Mitoman, heard that I went there 3 times to get the job done, and they praised me in front of Assistant Yuden, and then persuaded Assistant Yuden to properly arrange the task of supporting the ninja. Shisui seemed to be quite happy, as if he remembered the expression of Yuden Koharu. It's fine as long as it can be handled. Sima Yi nodded, then took out the inheritance book and the forbidden scroll and said, "Put that aside first. I have something else to ask you. Is there anything wrong with this thing?" Shisui took the book and scroll and asked curiously. Sima Yi didn't keep him in suspense, and asked directly, "It has nothing to do with them. Tell me what the pupil technique in your kaleidoscope is." "Eh? Grandpa doesn't know?" Shisui was stunned. He always thought that the other party knew it, but now it seems that he seems to have made a mistake. "You didn't tell me. How could I know?" Sima Yi raised his eyebrows and was quite speechless. The ancients said that those who know the enemy and know themselves will not be in danger in 100 battles. Knowing oneself without knowing the enemy will win 1 and lose 1, and knowing neither the enemy nor oneself will lead to danger in every battle. He is now in a state of not knowing himself and the enemy, which makes him feel very insecure. Shisui smiled awkwardly, scratched his head and carefully recalled the night they met. He remembered that he opened the kaleidoscope after hearing the mysterious voice. "Oh, I remember. I turned off the kaleidoscope when I summoned it." "I'm sorry, Grandpa. It was my negligence." Shisui blushed and apologized quickly. "Forget it. It's not too late now. Please tell me your pupil technique and strength in detail. This will affect our next action." Sima Yi waved his hand, too lazy to care. "Okay, Grandpa. The name of my pupil technique is Kodo Amatsukami," Shisui said and opened the kaleidoscope in front of Sima Yi. The mark like a shrieking immediately attracted Sima Yi's attention. You can directly invade the opponent's brain without being discovered by the opponent, and modify the opponent's will. But, wait, before he finished speaking, he saw Sima Yi's face change. He looked at Shisui in shock, with a little disbelief in his eyes. What's wrong?" Shisui was also confused, not knowing why the other party reacted so strongly. "You said that your eye technique can silently invade other people's brains and forcibly change their wills?" "Yes, you have this ability. Why did the Uchiha end up like that?" "What a terrifying ability this is. Banfeng can unify the 3 kingdoms." Shisui's face turned red, and he was also curious. Why would the Uchiha clan be exterminated in the future? "Yes, if the clan really wants a coup, with my ability, I should be able to stop this conflict." "How could Uchi do that?" "Stop the conflict?" Sima Yi looked at Shisui deeply, and immediately reacted. He asked, "Who are you going to stop?" Of course, after Sima Yi's reminder, Shisui also reacted. He patted his head with annoyance. "If it were the old me, I might use these eyes to ask the 3rd generation to give the Uchiha another chance. So, it must be the 3rd generation who did it to me." Shisui clenched his fists. When he saw the future of the Uchiha that night, he guessed that something might have happened to him. Now he finally found a murderer. "You have such power, and you dare to tell others. It is unjust that you will not die and Uchiha will not be destroyed." Sima Yi pointed out the stupidity of the other party directly, and Shisui lowered his head, but he didn't tell anyone yet. Shisui muttered in his heart but didn't dare to defend himself. After Sima Yi finished speaking, he remembered the contents of the book and scroll. "This power is so strong, are there any side effects after you use it?" "The left eye is an instantaneous, permanent Kodo Amatsukami, but the cooling time is very long. It takes about 10 years to recover after using it once. The right eye is continuous and needs to be used continuously. Once I stop using it, the effect of the illusion will disappear, but the cooling time is relatively short, and it can be recovered in about 3 days. Danzo has Hashirama cells. However, both of these techniques have a disadvantage. If the person who is hit by the technique is reminded by others and notices something unusual, there may be a possibility of getting rid of this technique." After listening to Shisui's explanation, Sima Yi nodded continuously. This is a technique targeting the subconscious mind. In his opinion, the right eye may be cracked, but the left eye technique is almost impossible to be cracked as long as the instructions are in line with the character setting. You have such a powerful technique. It seems that our future actions will be much easier. But you must remember that your ability must not be known to a third person, no matter who it is, including Ichi. Knowing that Shisui and Ichi have a good relationship, Sima Yi added, "Don't worry, Grandpa. How could I tell my trump card to others?" Shisui raised his head to assure, but met Sima Yi's suspicious eyes. "Anyway, I definitely won't do it now." "Well, I believe you." Sima Yi sighed, pointed at the thing in Shisui's hand and said, "The forbidden techniques in it are very powerful, and there are also life-saving methods. You must master them as soon as possible, but don't use them easily." Seeing that Sima Yi and the elder were in agreement, Shisui immediately nodded seriously. "If it were you, how many Jonin could you fight against at the same time?" After understanding the Mangekyo, Sima Yi asked about his strength again. The title of the strongest Hokage of the third generation made him a little afraid. "Well, 5 or 6. After all, they are all the elites in the village." Sima Yi frowned, a little doubtful. "Are you being modest? Then 20 or 30 is not a problem. If you go all out, how many can you kill?" "If they are all ordinary Jonin, relying on this pair of eyes, as long as their pupil power is enough, hundreds of them will be no problem." Sima Yi's mouth twitched. "How old is Shisui?" "But there are also some relatively powerful Jonin in the village, such as Kakashi Sr., or Akamaru, the patriarchs of the Inoshikacho and Hyuga families, and several assistants. With them, maybe only a few dozen people are needed to stop me." Sima Yi nodded. He investigated these people a little, but he was most concerned about the Hokage. The description in the book was really too exaggerated, so he had to be cautious. "If it's a one-on-one fight, who is more powerful between you and the Hokage?" "Thanks for the support. Still coding. Really going to do it." Chapter 66. It's time. Shisui had never really considered fighting the Hokage. "I heard that during the Nine Tails Rebellion, the third Hokage pushed the Nine Tails out of Konoha by himself. The Nine Tails is the strongest of all the tailed beasts. The third Hokage is undoubtedly powerful. If he fights him alone without using the other 10 god, it is hard to say who will win. Then how does his strength compare to the first Hokage?" Shisui shook his head. "I haven't seen the first Hokage, but the Nine Tails was subdued by the first Hokage, so it should be very powerful. The Great Elder may know the specific strength. I can find an opportunity to ask him when I have time." "That's it. Since your strength is strong enough in the clan, we can speed up our actions appropriately." Sima Yi did not ask more questions after hearing this. After all, the Hokage is the enemy in the future and is still their backer for now. "The Great Elder is willing to help me. Are you going to persuade the second Elder next?" "No, it's enough to persuade the Great Elder. As for the rest, you don't have to worry about it. First, master those forbidden techniques. For the next actions, you just need to watch carefully and learn well. I will let you come forward when necessary." "Okay, Grandpa." Shisui didn't hesitate and was very obedient. He was about to get up to practice when he heard the words, but was stopped by Sima Yi. "By the way, Jin Huo is practicing in the backyard. You go and teach him first. Remember not to be too heavy-handed." Sima Yi picked up the teacup and reminded him unintentionally. Shisui's eyes paused. Perhaps because he had been with Sima Yi for too long, he actually vaguely sensed the meaning of the other party's words. "Okay, Grandpa, I will be careful." "We have purchased the materials on the list according to the requirements of the housekeeper. Here is the account book." Because of the heavy snow, the prices of the latter part are higher than the previous investigation. In the evening, Sima Yi called Uchiha to ask about the results of the previous goods purchase. "It's okay, you did a great job." Sima Yi nodded in satisfaction at the list in his hand. Gizua just lowered her head and listened respectfully. "Go call Yingshu and Jin Huo." "Yes." After Gizua left, Jin Huo and the others came quickly. As soon as he entered the room, Sima Yi saw Jin Huo with a swollen nose and face. Sima Yi pretended not to know and asked curiously, "Why did you become like this?" Jin Huo put his hands on his hips and replied proudly, These are all left when I fought with Lord Shisui. Don't look at me like this, I also held on for a long time. Hiss out. Jinhuo suddenly took a breath of cold air while speaking, as if he was injured, and hurriedly covered his face and cried out in pain. Yingshu laughed at the sight. Fortunately, Shisui was very measured in his attack. Although it looked miserable, he didn't hurt his muscles and bones at all. With the physique of a ninja, he recovered on his own in 2 or 3 days. Really? That's really amazing. Sima Yi smiled and casually praised, then ordered, since there's nothing wrong, help me go to the police department to call Hu. Okay, Uncle Yi. Leave it to me. Jinhuo was very excited after receiving the task. He turned around and was about to pull Yingshu away, but heard Sima Yi continue. Yingshu, stay, you have another task. Yes. Jinhuo was stunned. Although he was curious, he didn't think much about it. He made an encouraging gesture to Yingshu and left first. It's snowing heavily these days. You go and notify them and find out if there is anything wrong in the clan land. Sima Yi took out a stack of banknotes and handed it to Yingshu. Yingshu took it and immediately understood what Sima Yi meant. He nodded and said, I'll go right away. Not long after the two left, Hui hurried over, with a hint of alcohol on his body. The moment he saw Sima Yi, who immediately sobered up and used chakra to force the alcohol out of his body, then asked, Uncle Yi, are there any new actions? You go and notify those merchants. Starting from tomorrow, the prices of firewood, rice, oil and salt will increase a little every day, and must increase by at least 30% before the new year, and no more than 50% at most. Pay attention to food, an increase of 30% is enough. Remember, you don't show up for this matter. Hui was stunned for a moment, and asked hurriedly, are you short of money? I still have a lot here, Uncle Yi, take it first. Sima Yi waved his hand and looked at Hui with a serious expression, it has nothing to do with money, you take it back yourself. These merchants must be controlled, and tell them that as long as they are obedient, we can find a way to send their children to ninja schools. As for what to do if they don't obey, Sima Yi didn't say anything. Seeing Sima Yi's sharp words, Hui did not dare to neglect. Don't worry, Uncle Yi, I will keep an eye on them. Also, tell those people outside to keep a close eye on the villagers during this period, and report any disturbance in time, and remember not to be stingy with rewards. Yes, that's it for now. Go to Xuo to get some New Year's goods and then return to the police department, and tell them that Shisui bought them specially for them today. That's it? He rushed over and didn't even drink a sip of water before letting him go back. Aren't you still drinking? Go ahead. Don't ignore those people. Hee. That's right. Hui smiled and turned away. Sima Yi sent away Jinhuo, who ran back later, and then continued to flip through various scrolls. The next morning, Yingshu handed the results of his busy night to Sima Yi and Shisui. These are the people affected by the heavy snow in the past 3 days. Many of their houses have collapsed, and some of the tribesmen are already in financial difficulty. Sima Yi read through the report and nodded with satisfaction. Not bad. You go down and rest first, go again tonight and tell them about these things. Report them every day in the future, and I will give them enough compensation. Yes. After Yingshu left, Shisui asked, the lives of ordinary tribesmen are already tight, and we don't know when this heavy snow will stop. Should we continue to recruit some people to help? Sima Yi shook his head and said in a flat tone, it's not time yet, let the snow fall for a while. Shisui opened his mouth, feeling reluctant, but he didn't say anything to refute and left silently. The heavy snow stopped completely after 3 days. Fortunately, the snow in the next 3 days was only intermittent, and the total amount of snow was not as much as any previous day, so it did not cause a large-scale snowstorm. But even so, many people were affected. Outside Konoha, the roads were closed, and the third generation would issue tasks to clear the snow every day. This is the situation today. Some tribesmen have been affected again. Clan leader Fugaku is busy with his first ceremony and doesn't seem to have noticed it. There is no movement in the clan, but Lord Shisui, Yingshu said hesitantly, it doesn't matter. Let him be. The New Year's Day is in 2 days. You can ask Jinhuo to get in touch with people of the same age in the clan, and help Shisui deliver some New Year's goods. Yes, Yingshu agreed and left. Sima Yi couldn't help but smile when he looked at the intelligence. After all, Shisui couldn't ignore the suffering of his clansmen, so he chose to help these people secretly. Although it went against his plan, the effect was actually the same, and he was not angry. It's time to start the next step. That's it, it's really gone, and you're still coding. Chapter 67, The Rise of Violence. My lords, 3 bowls of soup cost a total of 270 taels. Inside Konoha village, today is the last day of Konoha's 49th year. Sima Yi, Shisui, and Hui have a rare chance to go shopping while shopping for the new year. Although it is particularly cold on the day of melting snow, the streets are very lively. At Sima Yi's insistence, the 3 of them came to the place where they drank mutton soup. When Hui heard the price, he paused to pay. He looked at the woman and asked, "Wasn't it 80 taels a bowl last time? How long has it risen to 90 taels?" The woman paused, and said with embarrassment, "It snowed too much these days, and it's New Year, so the prices of things are rising, and we can't do anything about it." Hui opened his mouth to ask more, but was stopped by Sima Yi. "Okay, give her the money. We still need to go shopping somewhere else." "I'm just asking, not refusing to pay," Hui muttered, then took out the money obediently. Shisui looked at the empty store and asked curiously, "Has the business in this store always been bad?" "It used to be better, but I don't know why recently." The woman looked at the family emblem of the 2 people and a trace of resentment flashed in her eyes. She seemed to be a little afraid and didn't dare to say more. Okay, thank you." Shisui smiled awkwardly, and the 3 of them left the store. "Why is she so scared?" "We didn't do anything. Even the police department shouldn't interfere with this kind of small shop, right?" Shisui was a little puzzled. This kind of small shop might never attract the attention of Uchiha in his life, and it is even more impossible for Uchiha to make things difficult for him. Sima Yi heard this and explained calmly, 3 people make a tiger. If you hear too much about the police department, you will naturally take it seriously. Don't pay attention to it." "Uncle Yi, it seems not right. Many goods in the village are rising in price." Hui frowned and whispered as he looked at the prices on the small shops around. Sima Yi looked at the villagers passing by and smiled meaningfully. "The new year is coming, and it is snowing heavily. It is normal for prices to rise." Sima Yi did not explain too much. After speaking, he walked along the street. Hui looked at his back and remembered the previous mission, while Shisui remembered Sima Yi's warning to him to learn more and watch more. After looking at each other, they followed silently. During the period, Sima Yi kept stopping to buy some small things to taste and observe the people passing by. "Did you take a leave today just to go shopping?" The 3 of them walked and stopped, and suddenly met Uchiha Tyuo, who was patrolling near noon. Tyuo had 4 other people around him, and 2 members of the police department were each escorting a villager. The 3 police officers had different expressions when they saw Hui. The 2 behind him greeted him secretly, but Tyuo glanced at him expressionlessly. Only when he saw Shisui did he relax a little. "Yeah, tomorrow is New Year's Day. We can't have a stern face and be pointed at for the whole year." Hui felt an inexplicable sense of pleasure when he saw others going to work during the holidays. Tyuo paused, not wanting to pay attention to him. Shisui looked at the people behind him and asked, "What happened to them?" "We just received a report that these 2 people were arguing fiercely at the rally. When we arrived, they had already started fighting. In order not to affect others, I had to take them back first." Seeing the police officers mention themselves, the 2 of them became a little excited. One of the fat men shouted, "I said he started it first." "Why are you arresting me?" The other thin man cursed upon hearing this. "Asshole. It was obviously you, a profiteer, who cheated me first. Last night I went to buy 3 caddies of mutton from him, and it was agreed that it would be 190 taels per caddy. I paid all the money, but today when I came to get the meat, he asked me to pay another 60 taels, otherwise he would not sell it to me." "Asshole, profiteer, why don't you just die?" Did he get to this point just for 60 taels? Seeing this, Shisui paused, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Then he looked at the fat man and said, "Since you agreed with him yesterday, why did you go back on your word today?" The fat man was not afraid to see that Shisui did not have the uniform of the police department. "When I sold the mutton yesterday, I didn't say I would pay yesterday's price." Shisui widened his eyes and said subconsciously, "You obviously took the money. That was just a deposit. Anyway, he has to pay me 60 taels. Shut up, be honest, and talk to us when you get back if you have anything to say." Seeing that the two of them started to argue again, Tuo frowned and glanced at them coldly. The two of them were afraid and suddenly quieted down. "Don't pay attention to them. After they sit inside for a while, they will know who is right and who is wrong. You continue to stroll around. I will take them back first." Tuo has seen a lot of such things and has long been accustomed to them. He said hello and led the four people away. The common people in the market are very calculative. Many things don't make sense to these people. It is difficult to deal with such things fairly. From a moral point of view, the fat man should be punished, but from a legal point of view, the thin man did not have a written contract with him, but he took the initiative to affect the appearance of the city and should be punished. Sima Yi knew the trouble, but he didn't care at all. He just tried to dissuade Shisui a little to prevent him from causing more trouble at this time. "Only 60 taels is controversial, so what should we do if it is more?" Shisui thought seriously about how to deal with it, but then he remembered what happened at the previous Jonin meeting, and then shook his head again and again. This problem is still too complicated for him at the moment. Why think so much? We have been walking around for the whole morning and we have seen no less than 5 quarrels. Tomorrow is New Year's Day. Why are they so angry? Fortunately, I asked for leave today, otherwise it would be another busy day, Hua said carelessly. He looked around and soon found a restaurant. He pulled the two of them to go there. "Let's eat first. There are still a lot of things to do at home in the afternoon." Hearing this, Shisui smiled and joked, "This is just an ordinary restaurant. Aren't we going to the barbecue restaurant of Okimiki's family? Forget it. I have eaten a lot recently. I need to slow down." Hua smiled embarrassedly. In order to get along well with other people in the police department, he often went to barbecue restaurants recently, which was a bit greasy. After eating something, the three of them returned to the clan. Hui had to help his father clean the yard, and Shisui and Sima Yi also had to go back home to prepare for the future. These are for the elders and the clan leader, and these are for the third generation and the 3 assistants. Tomorrow is the first visit of the clan. After the ceremony, you have time to bring the gifts and visit them. Remember not to get the order wrong. Visit the clan leader first, then the elders' homes, and then the third generation and the assistants. In the hall, Sima Yi pointed to the gifts prepared in advance and arranged the itinerary for Shisui. "Shouldn't we visit the third generation first?" Sima Yi couldn't help laughing when he heard this. "No need to do so. The elders in the clan should be visited first to avoid giving people a chance to talk." "Do we have to give gifts to the 3 assistants?" Shisui found it difficult to accept. He even thought of being rejected by Danzo or Udatain Koharu. Sima Yi stroked his beard and smiled softly. "Open your mind. Remember what I told you? A person who is generous can become a great man. If the attitude is there, it is their business whether to accept it or not." Shisui was suspicious. He always felt that Sima Yi had secretly done something that he didn't know about, but he didn't ask much. He believed that Sima Yi would tell him when the time was right. "Okay, who are these for?" Shisui asked, pointing to another pile of gift boxes. "These are for the police department and your former subordinates. I will send people to deliver them to show my kindness," Sima Yi said, looking outside the hall, where Jinhuo, Yingshu and 6 others were carrying food and clothing, "and those are for ordinary clansmen. I originally planned to let Jinhuo and others deliver them, but I found out from your last test that Ichi's character seems to have not changed. If you don't want to meet him in the future, you should take him down to take a look. The timing is right these few days." Ichi always commented on Uchiha with narrow-mindedness, broad-mindedness, and tolerance. It was from this point that Sima Yi found that Ichi was a bit arrogant and proud. His eyes were always on the upper class, constantly examining others, but ignoring the ordinary people at the bottom. If his thinking cannot be changed, there will inevitably be waves in the future. Shisui looked solemn and nodded heavily. "I will, Grandpa. Changes have been made to the end of chapter 63. If you are interested, you can refresh and read it again. There will be no duplicate charges for those who have subscribed. I remember this. Chapter 68. First visit. New Year is a festival that Konoha village attaches great importance to, second only to the day when Konoha was founded and the day when the Hokage took office, especially for some families with a long tradition. Before dawn, Shisui and Sima Yi got up early. At Sima Yi's request, Shisui changed his usual ninja clothes and changed into a more complicated kimono. Grandpa, this is all I have this morning. Since the others were given a day off, there were only the two of them at home today, so Shisui had to cook breakfast for Sima Yi himself. It's okay, it's very good. Sima Yi enjoyed the fragrant rice porridge with the meals he bought earlier. After the meal, since it was still early, Sima Yi was in the mood to dance with a sword in the yard. Grandpa, is this a new physical skill? The slow movement aroused Shisui's interest, and he asked curiously while sitting in the corridor. It's just to exercise my body. I sit at home for a long time. If I don't move, I will be lazy, and laziness will cause illness. You are a ninja who fights outside all year round. Now that you are young and strong, it is not harmful, but it is inevitable that your foundation will be damaged. It may not last long in the future. You should pay more attention to your health. Sima Yi explained while dancing with the sword. He had seen too many people die early, and he didn't want Shisui to die young. I will pay attention to this, Grandpa. Shisui was young and didn't have much sense of this. He just nodded obediently. Sima Yi didn't say much until half an hour later when the two of them packed up and walked out of the house. At this moment, it was still dark, but people kept walking out of the alleys of the clan. People gathered in groups of 3 or 2 and chatted quietly, walking in the same direction. Master Shisui, someone noticed that Shisui and the other two were coming, bowed and signaled, and Shisui responded one by one with a smile. The annual meeting is not solemn. As the flow of people moved forward, Sima Yi noticed that this annual meeting was not solemn at all, but rather very simple and casual. Most of the tribe members, both men and women, old and young, who walked out of the alley were wearing home clothes, and some even wore ninja clothes. The annual meeting of the tribe was very important during the Warring States period, but it has been simplified a lot since the ancestor Madara. I heard that he hated these troublesome things when he was the tribe leader. Shisui knew a little about the annual meeting, and explained it to him. Sima Yi shook his head and sighed softly. Uchiha Madara? I have often heard of this person, but the major affairs of the country are only sacrifices and wars. For the family, this ceremony is still more solemn. Shisui was puzzled, but there were many people around, so he did not ask more, and continued to introduce some matters of the annual meeting to Sima Yi. The two chatted and soon came to the outside of Fugaku's house along the crowd. The crowd gathered together and gradually became a little messy, but they didn't have to wait too long, and the Fugaku family came out soon. The courtyard door was wide open, and Fugaku, wearing a complicated black kimono, slowly walked out of the house under the gaze of everyone, followed by Uchiha Mikoto in a tang suit. Even Ichi and Sasuke, who was still in his cradle, were dressed up carefully. The clan leader's family will preside over the entire ceremony, so it must be solemn. Shisui continued to explain. After the Fugaku family left, the crowd on the street immediately reacted. Many people bowed and signaled, and then made way for the 4 of them to walk out. Hurry up, clan leader, we can't wait any longer. The scene was very lively, and someone shouted to urge them. Fugaku was not angry, and nodded slightly to the people who saluted. Everyone made way, and after the Fugaku family walked in front, they followed closely behind and walked out of the clan. Hundreds of people gathered from every corner of the clan, forming a long team. Fugaku walked in front and led everyone out of the clan and headed towards the direction of the Minamiga River. Although the Uchiha clan is famous for the Sharingan and fire escape, it is surprising that the god they worship is the river god of the Minamiga River. Nanga Shrine, where Kabe is located, is just downstream of this river, close to the original Uchiha clan land, so they need to follow the river down to the inner area of Konoha. Strange? In previous years, although there were few people on the street during the New Year's Day, there was still no one. What happened this year? Is it too cold? Just after leaving the clan land and passing a street corner, Shisui looked at the empty street with some confusion. It is still winter now. Although it is not dawn, it is not too late. Hee. Maybe they are afraid of bumping into us. Sima Yi chuckled and did not find it strange at all. Shisui's expression moved slightly, and he looked at Sima Yi thoughtfully. Shisui noticed something unusual, and Fugaku also noticed something unusual. He calmly led everyone to the route specified earlier. In order to avoid affecting the villagers, the road they chose was already the most remote, and there was no way to optimize it, so there was no one at the main street corner, and it was even quieter here. Shisui looked around, and he could keenly perceive the vague gazes from the surrounding houses, and there were many hostile eyes. Fortunately, there was no conflict. After crossing several streets, the Uchiha team successfully arrived at the Nanga River in 20 minutes. Then Fugaku led everyone to form a long dragon and go down the river, and came to the vicinity of their original clan land. That is the Nanga Shrine, where the Nanga River god is enshrined. Chief Fugaku and Aunt Mikoto will hold a cleansing ceremony for us later. Following Shisui's direction, Sima Yi saw the shrine on the mountain, and at the same time, the team in front slowly stopped. From here, two figures can be seen stepping onto the mountain steps and crossing the Torii Gate. They are Fugaku and Mikoto. After a while, it seems that the upper part is ready. The clan members below began to move, and some people stepped onto the stone steps on the left. It seems to take a while. There are at least 200 people in front of the two. Even if the ceremony and the shrine is not complicated, the two have waited for about an hour. Brother Shisui, Grandpa Yi, good morning. Ichi suddenly came on the steps with Sasuke on his back. Everyone recognized Ichi's identity and left space for Ichi to come to the two. Good morning, Ichi, have you finished yet? No, I haven't gone up yet. It's really hard, Ichi. Shisui looked at Sasuke on Ichi's back, who was staring around with big eyes, and couldn't help sighing. No, it's Mom and Dad who are really hard-working. That's right, Shisui agreed. There were thousands of tribesmen here, which meant that Fugaku and Mikoto would have to host the entire ceremony for 5 or 6 hours. Go up first. Seeing that the two started chatting again, Sima Yi had to remind them that the tribesmen around were watching them. Sorry. Shisui smiled awkwardly, and the four of them climbed up the stairs. After passing the Torii Gate, there was another stone staircase. On the stone staircase, in front of the shrine, Mikoto stood under the wooden workshop with a smile on her face, holding a wooden ladle. In front of her was a futon, and beside her was a wooden bucket. Every tribe member would kneel on the futon when passing by, allowing Mikoto to take some water drops and sprinkle them on their bodies to show that they were removing dirt, taking away evil spirits and bad luck. Although it was just a simple action, she was facing thousands of tribesmen. Fortunately, Mikoto was also a ninja and had a strong body. Mom and Mikoto. When it was the turn of the four people, Mikoto just looked at them gently, but did not say much. Although Sima Yi did not approve of the act of offering sacrifices to gods, he cooperated very well and accepted the water bead baptism with Shisui and others. Ichi, take good care of your brother after the baptism. Mikoto had time to give a loving advice. Well, no problem. I will take good care of my brother. Ichi turned his head to look at Sasuke and responded seriously. Shisui, can I leave Ichi to you today? Don't worry, leave it to me. I will take good care of them. Shisui smiled and also responded, thank you. As the few people were talking, another tribe member came forward, and Mikoto had to hurriedly thank him and end the conversation. Leaving the wood shop, the main hall of the shrine is in front. The tribe members on the left lined up to enter, and the tribe members on the right looked at the fortune sticks in their hands and talked in 2s and 3s. Inside is the statue of Habek, and Lord Fugaku is also there. After worshipping the statue and getting the fortune stick, we can leave. Divination? The 10,000th day is still too difficult for me, so I can only try the 6th day first. If I write too much, my head will be empty and it will be filled with nonsense. There will be another chapter later. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 Dilemma. Sima Yi knew a little about the divination technique in his previous life, but he had only read about the divination of the ninja world in some miscellaneous books, and could only barely say that he had a rough understanding. Ichi led Sasuke first, and soon after they paid homage to the river god. They received 2 fortune sticks from Fugaku. Sima Yi and Shisui followed closely behind. When it was Shisui's turn to enter the lobby, he happened to see Fugaku secretly stuffing paper balls into the fortune stick tube. The two looked at each other, and Fugaku's expression paused. Then he straightened his body and looked serious as if nothing had happened. Shisui's mouth twitched and tried to control his expression. After paying homage to the river god and receiving the fortune stick, he did not dare to stay for long, and left quickly after saying hello. Brother Shisui, what did you draw? As soon as Shisui left the lobby, Ichi came up to him with a piece of paper in his hand and asked curiously, "This year is 11, what about you, Ichi?" Shisui smiled and spread out the fortune stick, on which the word 11 was clearly written. "My number is 58. And Sasuke's number is 1. The two looked at each other, and then looked confused, because they had no idea what these numbers meant. After all, the numbers drawn every year were different, and if they wanted to understand the meaning, they needed to find someone to explain it. What did Grandpa draw? Shisui looked at it for a long time but couldn't figure it out, so he quickly approached Sima Yi and asked. Sima Yi spread out the fortune stick in front of Shisui's eyes, and it said 47. What does this mean? Can't you just write it down? Shisui scratched his head and complained. 47 represents good fortune and official luck, and there is also a saying that great things come late. Although it's not accurate, it's close. Sima Yi suddenly explained, and Shisui looked strange and asked, Grandpa also knows this? Sima Yi stroked his beard and chuckled. Ha ha ha, I know a little bit. That's amazing. What about Ichi and I? Shisui was a little excited and asked quickly. 11 represents good luck, a prosperous family, and a smooth career. It is considered a great fortune. As for 58, Sima Yi paused and looked at Ichi and explained, 58 represents a difficult situation. It means being caught between a rock and a hard place. It is bad luck. Shisui's face changed and he immediately turned back to look at Ichi. Ichi just tilted his head and looked at Shisui calmly. Grandpa Yi, is Sasuke's one a great fortune? Ichi didn't care about his own fortune stick, but raised Sasuke's fortune stick and asked, one means success and good luck. His life will be smooth. It is a great fortune. Sima Yi nodded to confirm Ichi's guess. Ichi was happy and turned his head to Sasuke and said, that's great. Seeing Ichi's smiling face, Shisui breathed a sigh of relief and felt guilty at the same time. A dilemma? Mom and Dad may not be back until noon today. Can Sasuke and I go to brother Shisui's house? While thinking, Ichi suddenly spoke to bring Shisui back to reality. Shisui smiled gently and replied, you are welcome anytime. Hang the lottery sticks on the tree and then go back. Ichi smiled and nodded in response. After hanging his own lottery stick, he stood on tiptoes to hang Sasuke's lottery stick on it. All this fell into Sima Yi's eyes. His eyes moved slightly and he took note secretly. Not long after the 4 people left, 2 more figures came. They were Uchiha and Toru, father and son. The 2 entered the hall to pay homage to Kabek. Then Sai gestured to Fugaku and shook the bamboo stick violently, and then shouted, marriage, marriage. The roar made Toru subconsciously move away. He looked at his father with a helpless look on his face. Sai didn't stop until a ball of paper flew out. He spread out the fortune stick and asked Fugaku, such a small number, it should be a good omen, right? Fugaku shook his head lightly with a serious face and didn't reply. He was just a part-time worker. How could he know the meaning of these fortune sticks? Hui raised his eyebrows and walked forward to take a look. 3. At noon, Uchiha Shinutsu and Xua and others who rushed back from Nanga Shrine ended their vacation. They returned to Shisui's house and prepared a sumptuous lunch for everyone. This made Shisui, who was just about to show off his skills, feel regretful and relieved at the same time. Then, at Sima Yi's reminder, He gave everyone a big red envelope, including Ichi and Sasuke. "I'm full. Thank you for the hospitality." Ichi put down his chopsticks and clasped his hands together, then picked up the liquid food prepared by Uchiha Shinutsu and others for Sasuke, and fed Sasuke attentively like an adult. It's really hard work. No matter how many times he saw this scene, Shisui couldn't help but feel emotional. "Ichi, Chief Fugaku and Aunt Mikoto should be back soon. I will go back with you later. I want to visit your home on the first day of the new year." Ichi looked up at Shisui and nodded without hesitation. "Yes, Mom and Dad will be very happy to see brother Shisui." Sima Yi remained silent throughout the conversation between the two, and only reminded them after dinner, "There are others to visit. Don't delay too long." "Okay." Shisui nodded in response, and then took the prepared gifts and went back with the Ichi brothers. At Ichi's home, Fugaku and Aunt Mikoto had just returned, and Mikoto went into the kitchen to prepare lunch. "Mom and Dad, I'm back." Ichi carried Sasuke on his back and entered the living room first. Fugaku turned around and looked over the two of them to see Shisui behind him. "Happy New Year, Chief Fugaku." "Yes, Happy New Year, Shisui. Thank you for your hard work on Ichi's matter." After the two of them briefly greeted each other, Shisui put down the gift box and exchanged a few words with Fugaku, while Ichi carried Sasuke on his back and walked to the kitchen. Mikoto came forward with a gentle expression after seeing the two of them, and then she saw a red envelope in Sasuke's collar. "What is this?" "This is given by brother Shisui, and I have one here too." Facing his mother's doubts, Ichi naturally took out the red envelopes to explain. The two red envelopes were very thick. Mikoto knew that there were at least 50,000 ryo in them just by holding them in her hands. "Is that so? But it's not good for children to take too much money. Mom will help you collect the red envelopes first, and I will return them to you when you grow up. Okay?" "Yes, thank you, Mom." Ichi is such a good child. Mikoto still had to be busy. After Ichi handed over the red envelopes, he took Sasuke back to the living room, but saw that only Fugaku was left in the living room. "Has brother Shisui left?" "Yes, he still has to visit other elders." Fugaku's tone was flat, and his eyes stayed on the gift box sent by Shisui, but his eyes revealed a little strangeness. "When did Shisui, this child, learn this kind of thing?" On the other hand, after Shisui left Fugaku's house, he visited several elders separately. The second elder and others entertained him very warmly, but the first elder didn't even let him in even though he took the gift. The first elder shouldn't have any bad intentions, right? Holding the gift box, Shisui came to the Sarutobi tribe's territory and recalled the scene of being turned away just now. He thought awkwardly in his heart, "Master Shisui, the third elder invites you in." 7,000. I've broken through the limit. My eyeballs feel like they're going to explode. This chapter is a bit blurry. I have to take a nap, and read it again tomorrow. If there are any problems, I'll correct them tomorrow. Slept, really slept. Chapter 70. The innately evil Uchiha Kid. Happy New Year, Sandame-sama. After getting permission, Shisui was led into the clan territory by the Sarutobi clan. To his surprise, the Sarutobi clan revealed in just this short distance was stronger and more prosperous than he imagined. "Ha ha ha, I didn't expect you would come to visit an old man like me on the first day of the new year." Shisui Sandame was sitting outside the hall in casual clothes, smoking, and smiled when he saw Shisui being brought here. "On the first day of the new year, you should visit elders who are worthy of respect and trust. Sandame-sama is such a person in my heart." Shisui shook his head repeatedly, and he looked at Sandame and said sincerely, "An elder who is worthy of respect and trust." Ha ha ha. Sandame was moved, and couldn't help laughing happily when he heard it, and even said, "The village can really rest assured with someone like you. I really envy that guy Jing, who actually has such a sensible and excellent grandson." No, Sandame-sama, I can be where I am today because of your guidance, all because of the will of fire. Shisui hesitated for a moment, and then continued, "Today is New Year's Day. You are a guest when you visit me. You don't need to call me sir, you can be more casual." Sandai smiled and turned to the living room with Shisui. Someone immediately came to pour tea and water for them. But, Isn't this too disrespectful? Shisui hesitated, but heard Sandai continue. This is the order of the Hokage. Although I really want to say so, I am not the Hokage here today. Kagami is my trustworthy companion. If possible, I hope you can call me Grandpa Sarutobi. Seeing Sandai's insistence, Shisui was reluctant in his heart, but he had to say, then, Grandpa Sandai. Ahaha, that's fine, take it. This is a red envelope from Grandpa Sandai. Sandai smiled and took out a red envelope from his arms. Shisui immediately stepped forward to take it, and then stared at the red envelope blankly, a little absent-minded. What's wrong? No, it's just that I also visited the clan leader and several elders today, and was rejected by the great elder. This is the first time someone has given me a red envelope today. Thank you, Grandpa Sandai. Shisui's voice was a little choked, and there was some loss in his words. I see, you've worked hard on the Uchiha. It doesn't matter. The one who really worked hard is Grandpa Sandai. If it weren't for you during this period, the conflicts between the assistants and the elders would probably become more and more intense. The misunderstanding between the family and the village would probably become deeper and deeper. All this is the credit of Grandpa Sandai. Thank you. Shisui bowed and greeted sincerely. The Uchiha clan is also a member of the village, but you shouldn't blame the assistants too much. The conflict between the village and the Uchiha has a long history. They are not deliberately targeting them. If possible, I hope you can understand each other. Sandai patted Shisui's shoulder and continued to suggest, why not take this opportunity to visit them? Shisui, maybe we can make things clear, and we can protect the village together in the future. Can I really do it? Shisui frowned, looking a little embarrassed. The third generation nodded and smiled kindly. Go ahead and give it a try. Since the third generation grandfather said so, I'll go now. After saying this, Shisui bowed and said goodbye, and left the Sarutobi clan under the gaze of the Sarutobi clan members. After Shisui left, the third generation looked at the gift box beside him and couldn't help but smile, and whispered, it would be great if Shisui was the head of the Uchiha clan. On the other side, Shisui brought gifts to visit Shimura Danzo and Uchiha Koharu in succession, and their responses were, Danzo, the evil Uchiha kid, what is he doing here? I won't see him. Uchiha Koharu, what does the greedy Uchiha want from me? Let him go. As expected, Shisui was turned away by the two people, and even his gift was not sent in. Only Mito Kato-in had a better attitude, and Shisui's gift was brought into the clan. But after hearing that the other two people turned him away, he also persuaded him to leave. Although I had guessed this possibility a long time ago, the assistants for the transfer and Danzo really hated me. Assistant Mitoman seemed to be better, but he still rejected me. Why do these three assistants hate Uchiha so much? I wanted to take the opportunity to contact Danzo, but it's a pity. After returning home, Shisui told Sima Yi the results of today's visit. Perhaps only Danzo really hates Uchiha, but I think people like him are also motivated by some interests that we don't know about. The assistant for the transfer is motivated by practical interests such as the daimyo's funds, and Assistant Mitoman is more of a judge of the situation. After listening to this, Sima Yi analyzed the motives of the three assistants for Shisui. Shisui nodded. He gradually guessed a little about these things, but he couldn't see as thoroughly as Sima Yi. Then the great elder probably doesn't want to get too close to me, lest I be suspected by others. Not bad. Sima Yi nodded, and then praised. Your response today was also decent, but if you had taken the initiative when the third generation first hinted, it might have been better. No way. To me, Grandpa is the only one. If he hadn't taken the initiative to ask, I wouldn't want to call him the third generation grandpa. Shisui immediately shook his head. His attitude was extremely firm. Oh? Sima Yi was surprised. It was really not a big deal for him to recognize a grandfather, but he didn't expect Shisui to be so resistant. Some emotions in this world really go beyond interests, is that so? But the third generation did remind me a little. Seeing Shisui so determined, Sima Yi smiled and had to give up. Then he took out a red envelope from his arms, stroked Shisui's head, and whispered, Happy New Year. Shisui blushed, took the red envelope and nodded excitedly. Well, Happy New Year. Thank you Grandpa. There was no money in the red envelope, nor any precious things, only an ordinary rope, which Sima Yi put on. Shisui did not open it. He put it away very solemnly. Have a good rest and recuperate tonight. Starting tomorrow, many people should come. It will be very busy for a long time. Many people? Who? Shisui was stunned and asked subconsciously. Although he has a high status in the clan, few people have taken the initiative to visit him in the past 2 or 3 years, perhaps because they have nothing in common. Sima Yi chuckled. Today I have asked Jinhuo and others to send the things out. If nothing unexpected happens, all the ninjas in the clan should come to visit starting tomorrow, including people from the police department. You have to deal with them well. The New Year visit is undoubtedly a great opportunity to get closer to them. Let them get to know Shisui, and also for Shisui to win over the clan members. Shisui also understands this. Although he is not very good at this, he still said with a firm look, I understand. I will try my best. Chapter 71, Turbulence. As Sima Yi expected, the next morning, Ichi was the first to visit with gifts. Before Shisui could say a few words to Ichi, who also hurried over, followed by Uchiha Yashiro, Uchiha Tetsuka, Uchiha Yangs, and Uchiha Inahori. As if they had agreed, everyone came one by one. The descendants of several elders, members of the police department, some of Shisui's former subordinates, and the medical ninjas who were sent to support the ninja hospital also came to visit. Shisui never refused anyone, entertained guests every day, and talked about the future with different people. This situation lasted for 3 days, and the number of people who came to visit suddenly dropped. But before Shisui could breathe a sigh of relief, the ordinary ninjas in the clan seemed to have waited for the opportunity and began to visit with gifts. This went on for 7 days. I'm so tired. It's finally over. After seeing off the last few clan members, Shisui returned to the living room and lay on the floor without caring about his image and breathed a sigh of relief. Although the last ninjas who came were ordinary ninjas with relatively low status in the clan, Shisui still did not neglect them. He went out to greet them, thanked them for their gifts, sat at the same table, sincerely invited them to have lunch, dinner, together, and talked about the future. Those who long for fame and status described the glory of the Uchiha, and those who long for peace described the peaceful future. He tried his best to use everything he learned from Sima Yi, and the effect was remarkable. The later it was, the more sincere the clan members who left were. Socializing is like this. If you become the clan leader in the future, you will have to face people from other clans, and troubles are inevitable. Sima Yi smiled and then sat aside with a pen and paper sketching something. Seeing this, Shisui slowly got up and asked, all the ninjas in the clan, except the one at the Great Elders, should have been here, right? Everyone has come, which means your status in the clan is high enough. Then let's. Oh, by the way, I have to take Ichi to the clan members, but Ichi didn't seem to come to see me these 2 days. Is there something wrong? Ichi's matter is not urgent. It seems that Teru will be on holiday tomorrow. You can also take this opportunity to rest and go out with him to walk around Konoha. Sima Yi did not answer directly, but showed a strange smile. Shisui was not happy to hear that he could rest. Instead, his heart sank and he felt something was wrong. He had been busy dealing with the clan members these days and he had not left the clan for a long time. Grandpa, you didn't do anything to stir up trouble again, did you? No, I didn't do this. I just went with the flow. Sima Yi chuckled and turned to leave. Then he called Xua and others to clean up the remaining food and send it outside the house. Shisui frowned and thought carefully about what Sima Yi meant. However, he had been busy with clan affairs these days and had not paid attention to news from the outside world for a long time, so he had no way to guess. It was not until the next morning when he ran to find Hu at dawn, but was told that Hui had just gone out not long ago. Shisui had to go to the outside of the clan alone. At this time, the shops on both sides of the street had already started business early. It's much busier than the day of the first day. The old lady's business should have recovered. Seeing the lively scene on the street, Shisui thought of the old woman selling mutton soup. He was about to go to Konoha to check inside, but he keenly noticed a stream of unfriendly eyes. Not directed at him, but at the clan emblem behind him. Another damn Uchiha, a domineering clan. Even if it's just a child, he has such a disgusting face. Arrogant family, Huh? Shisui raised his eyebrows. Although these voices were weak, he could naturally hear them clearly with his strength. Is there anything wrong with my appearance? Shisui was not too surprised by this kind of abuse. He had become aware of it after hearing Sima Yi's reminder yesterday. It was just that the direction of these people's complaints seemed a little strange. Domineering, arrogant, and his appearance. What did the police department do? Although Shisui was curious, he didn't care about these looks and walked on his own. Uchiha people, go away. We won't sell you the things here. What? Why don't you sell it to me today? It's not like I didn't pay. As soon as he entered the inner street, a familiar voice attracted Shisui's attention. Brother Hui. The source of the voice was Uchiha Hui, who was standing in front of a breakfast shop in his casual clothes, pointing at a few baskets of steamed buns and arguing with the boss. Shisui, hearing someone calling his name, Hui paused and looked back. When he saw Shisui, he was surprised. It's really strange. Why are you here? Are you going to find the third generation? In Hui's impression, Shisui rarely left the clan except for missions and the third generation or Uncle Yi. No, I'm out for a walk. What's wrong with you guys? The boss of the bun shop saw another Uchiha kid coming. His whole face fell, and he waved his hand impatiently and said, Go, go, go. I said I won't sell buns to you. Huh? Seeing that the other party was still acting like this, Hui's face sank, and his anger rose. You guy, are you looking down on us Uchiha? As Hui's voice fell, a cold murderous intent passed through his bones, and the bun shop owner, who was originally impatient, suddenly sat on the ground with a face full of panic, trembling all over. The huge movement immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding villagers. Oops, sorry, we'll go first. Shisui thought it was not good, and hurriedly stepped forward to pull Hui away, throwing 500 taels of paper money before leaving. Brother Hui, what's going on? Why is he unwilling to sell you things, and why are those people on the street starting to exclude you again? After the two walked to a secluded corner, Shisui hurriedly asked. Facing a series of questions, Hui pondered for a moment, and was a little puzzled. He scratched his head and seemed to be a little entangled. These guys have been like this since the first day of the visit. I'm just wondering, that guy sold me a few baskets of buns when I was on patrol yesterday. Why is he acting out of character today? So you know what's going on? Seeing that Hui seemed to have gotten used to it, Shisui couldn't help but twitch his lips. Didn't Master Yi tell you? Oh, I see, no wonder you came out. Hui was stunned when he heard this, then he reacted and explained, it was the two old guys, Tsunetsu and Mitaman, who did this. Before the first ceremony, they warned all the shops on the street, and they were forbidden to open on that morning until our ceremony was over. So now the merchants in the village who were affected are very dissatisfied with us. At first, these people just cursed secretly, and then when they saw that we didn't react, they started to raise the price of the tribe members' things. Now some people don't know who provoked them and are unwilling to do business with us. You have been busy with things over there these days, so you probably don't know that there is a lot of resentment inside and outside the tribe now. Hui said this with a nonchalant expression, not angry at all, and seemed to be gloating in his words. Why do they blame Uchiha for what they did? And you have been excluded, too. Why do you look a little happy? Shisui sighed, then frowned and thought about the purpose of Sima Yi's doing this. Seeing Shisui silent, Hui said, don't worry too much. These merchants who refuse to trade are only a minority, just like the guy who smiled happily when he took my money yesterday. Wait, is it because I didn't wear the uniform of the police department today? Hui paused, and finally reacted. He clapped his hands and cursed directly. I wonder why I haven't been affected for so many days. These guys are really bullying the weak and afraid of the strong. A grandpa asked me to find you to go out for a walk together. I didn't expect it to be like this. The clan leader and the elders are probably going to quarrel again. No wonder I haven't seen Uchi for a few days. Shisui can already imagine the scene at Fugaku's house. It's not just the clan leader. Come with me, Hui said, pulling Shisui and walking towards the clan's land. Along the way, the two saw several ordinary Uchiha clan members. They endured the cold violence around them, purchased daily necessities under strange eyes, and then quickly returned to the clan's land. These people Hui snorted coldly, with a bad look in his eyes. If Uncle Yi hadn't warned me beforehand, I really wanted to teach these guys a lesson. Before, only the police department was abused, but this time even ordinary tribesmen were affected. The tribe should all be complaining about the two assistants, right? The two of them returned to the tribe, but who did not take him home, but led him to a small pond. Several women in simple clothes were beating clothes by the pond, and the two stood in the distance to hide their figures. Why did Lord Hokage do this? We obviously did nothing. That is to say, things on the street are getting more and more expensive. When we go out to buy things, we have to endure their eyes. Why do they deliberately target us? The price of firewood, rice, oil and salt has increased, and now even the price of washing powder has increased. What do those people want to do? When can the clan leader tell the third generation? If Lord Shisui hadn't sent some leftovers to our family these days, my children wouldn't even have a piece of meat to eat. Why is that? It's obviously New Year's Day. Really, it's almost unbearable. The youngest woman among the few people couldn't help crying while talking. Although she was a woman, she looked only 17 or 18 years old, not even as old as who. Although the two stood far away, they could hear it clearly. Shisui looked at the backs of the few people and fell into silence. Don't blame yourself. This is not Uncle Yi's doing. Sorry, I will succeed and compensate everyone. Facing his comfort, Shisui shook his head and looked forward and said softly. He knew Sima Yi would definitely take action, so he would not evade, but take the responsibility for it all. But why are they complaining about the third generation? Shouldn't it be done by Tachina and assistant Mitumen? This is all thanks to me. Chapter 72 Shisui, I gradually understand everything. Hu patted his chest and explained complacently, Uncle Yi has always asked me to pay attention to the reactions of the villagers, so I knew the news before the first visit ceremony was over. When I visited your house the next day, Uncle Yi saw that you were busy and pulled me into the study. He asked me to go back to the police department to publicize while the captains were away, so I left in such a hurry that day. And I get along well with everyone on weekdays. Everyone basically believed me when I opened my mouth. After that, Uncle Yi asked people to spread the news in the clan, and the news from both sides guaranteed each other, and soon the whole clan knew about it. So, Grandpa deliberately directed the resentment towards the third generation. Shisui's eyes moved slightly, and he reacted quickly. He whispered to himself, Grandpa once asked me to fight for the interests of the tribe members from the third generation. Judging from the reaction of the third generation during this period, once the tribe members are too resentful, he should make concessions. Could it be that Grandpa is creating an opportunity? As Shisui spoke, his eyes gradually brightened, and he seemed to understand everything. Is there? Hu scratched his head. As he listened to Shisui's analysis, his mind gradually went blank. He tried to recall Sima Yi's arrangements during this period. It seemed that there was a vague connection, but he could not grasp it clearly. After a while, he had to give up and said, It's really worthy of Shisui, eh? Shisui's face turned red. After the two looked at each other, he suddenly asked with a guilty conscience, Why don't we go back to ask Grandpa? Then ask. Anyway, he saw what Sima Yi wanted him to know. So Shisui and the others simply returned home. Strive for the interests of the clan? In the study, Sima Yi sorted out the news inside and outside the clan and continued to study the sealing technique here. Seeing the two people rushing to ask, his eyes revealed a little strange. He saw the expectation in Shisui's eyes. Although he would never spoil anyone's fun, this matter, the time is not right yet. Why do such a thankless task? Shisui paused, puzzled. But didn't Grandpa ask me to fight for the interests of the tribe members before? Now the tribe members are quite resentful. Maybe it will be successful if I mention it to the third generation now. Who also nodded. He had been thinking on the way here, and he felt that Shisui's words made sense. Acting with the will of the people is not about fighting for interests. It is about forcing the emperor to abdicate. What you are doing now will only backfire. Seeing the two people's confusion, Sima Yi put down the scroll and patiently explained, Now, you rely on the trust of both sides. Neither the clan members nor the third generation are your base. You don't need to fight for tangible interests for any party. You just need to promise to win them over, show some favors, and maintain trust. Only when you become the clan leader will the clan members be your foundation, and then you will need to ensure their interests. Shisui nodded a little disappointedly. I understand. For now, the trust of the third generation is still the main thing. The conversations of those women and the figures of those clan members fleeing back to the clan land in a panic made Shisui feel a little uncomfortable. Hui just nodded. Although these things made him feel a little aggrieved, he knew that this was all arranged by Sima Yi, and Uchiha would see the dawn sooner or later. Seeing this, Sima Yi comforted him softly. Don't be sad, it won't take too long. Shisui smiled when he heard this, thinking that Sima Yi was comforting him. Just as he was about to speak, he saw him raise his hand to calculate, and mutter something. Calculate the time, it's probably only half a month. It happens that both of you are free today, so take Jin Huo and the others to move the things in the warehouse. Here is the list, which contains the conditions of those people's homes. You go door to door according to the list. Without waiting for the two to respond, Sima Yi added at the end, remember to bring Ichi with you. Great. Thank you, Grandpa. I'll go right away. Shisui was delighted and immediately understood what the other party meant. He quickly took the list and turned away excitedly. Another hard job. Hui grinned a little dissatisfied, but his body turned around honestly. He was about to leave but was stopped by Sima Yi. Sima Yi's lips moved. Hui's face changed and nodded repeatedly, and then left the study. After the two left, Sima Yi shook his head and sighed. Still not steady enough. Can't bear the temper. But after all, Shisui is young, so it's understandable. Just keep polishing. As for Hui, let him be. No longer paying attention to the two, Sima Yi's eyes fell on the scroll again, and the word barrier was written on one side of the scroll. According to Sima Yi's study of sealing techniques during this period, he divided it into 4 types and 7 stages according to different difficulties and functions. They are alert, isolation, barrier, seal, dead objects, seal, chakra Dalian chakra, seal, space, seal, living things. Being able to use sealing techniques for alert means that you have entered the door. Isolation includes the 5 senses, use and anti-alert. The role of the barrier is more diverse and complex, among which there are more uses and restrictions. The difficulty of sealing varies greatly based on the different targets, among which sealing dead objects is the most basic. Of course, these are just divided according to the existing sealing techniques in the Uchiha clan. What surprised him the most was that there were records of life forms being sealed in the clan, but the details were not clear, which made him quite regretful. In addition, what also made him regretful was that the clan did not have a method to seal the soul alone, and only left some related records, which mentioned the Uzumaki clan that was almost extinct. The clan's barrier is too shabby and full of loopholes. The people in Konoha's upper echelons can come and go almost freely, and there is no privacy in the clan. Fugaku compromised with several clan elders and allowed them to do so, but what Shisui will do next needs to be kept secret, and preparations must be made in advance. The training of the younger generation in the clan must also keep up. Sima Yi sorted and calculated while keeping various things in mind. While he was busy, Shisui and others also rushed to the warehouse. So many things? Uchiha led a few people to the warehouse. When the warehouse was opened, Shisui couldn't help but exclaimed. Several warehouses were temporarily built, and they were filled with rice, flour, oil, salt and cotton clothes. He only saw the tip of the iceberg in the yard last time, and now that he opened the warehouse, he found that Sima Yi was well prepared. After Shisui checked, he sent his avatar to call Ichi, while his real body led Hui, Jin Huo and others to move the supplies. However, Sima Yi had prepared at least half a month's worth of supplies for 600 people. Even if 8 of them were ninjas, it would be difficult to take out too much at once. He had no choice but to give up and take out a part first, then load it in a cart. After Ichi arrived upon invitation, several people pushed the cart and prepared to set off. Everyone, form a group of 2. Divide the alleys and act separately. Ichi will follow me. Ichi didn't know what he was going to do, but he still nodded obediently. What about me? Hui was stunned. He looked around. There were a total of 9 ninjas here. 6 attendants had already divided into teams, and he was the only one who was alone. Oh, hee. Big brother Hui should come too. Shisui smiled awkwardly. He was so busy with Ichi that he forgot Hui. If you don't want to, don't force yourself. Hui rolled his eyes and said unhappily. However, although he said so, Hui thought about Sima Yi's instructions and still pushed the cart and followed. The three of them pushed the cart to the edge of the tribe's territory. This was a relatively remote alley that Shisui had deliberately chosen. Brother Shisui, are we going to sell things? The three of them pushed the cart and attracted the attention of many tribesmen along the way. They really looked like vendors. Ichi couldn't help but ask curiously. No, some tribesmen are having difficulties in life now. I want to send some things to help them. Is Ichi willing to go with us? Facing Ichi's doubts, Shisui explained very gently. Yes, I will go. Since Sasuke was born, Ichi realized that the meaning of life might lie in protection. He agreed with Shisui's intention to protect the tribesmen. However, the people in the tribe are so arrogant. Will they accept brother Shisui's kindness? In Ichi's view, this behavior is help in a tactful way, and charity in a more direct way. He didn't think those people in the tribe would accept a few bags of rice. Chapter 73, Just a Child After All. As soon as these words came out, Shisui's mouth twitched, and Hui's eyes moved slightly. The two looked at each other in shock. You'll know whether you will accept it or not, Hui couldn't help but said before Shisui spoke. Ichi was stunned, and after looking at Hui, he didn't say anything else, just followed quietly. After a while, the three of them came to the alley. It was still morning, and many tribesmen went out to work. There were also several small shops at the alley. Some people noticed Shisui and Ichi, and bowed to greet them from a distance. Shisui responded with a smile one by one, and then took Ichi to knock on a door. After a few breaths, the door opened a body, and an old lady squinted her eyes and stuck her head out to look at Shisui's face. Who are you? Ichi stood behind Shisui and looked at him curiously. He could clearly feel that the other party was just an ordinary person who did not pose any threat. Good morning. Excuse me, I'm Uchiha Shisui. This is Uchiha Ichi. I'm sorry that the recent events in the clan have affected you. Here are some gifts. Although they are not much, they represent my thoughts. I hope you can accept them. Shisui's voice was gentle. After a brief introduction, he put the supplies at the door and took a step back. Shisui, the old lady, was stunned for a moment before she reacted. Her eyes widened, and she quickly opened the door and repeated excitedly, "Are you Lord Shisui?" She looked excited and seemed a little unbelievable. She didn't know what Shisui looked like, but his name had long been engraved in their hearts. Yes, I'm Uchiha Shisui. Shisui's tone was always gentle, and he moved slowly, fearing that he would hurt the old lady. So, it's really Lord Shisui. Come in and sit down, I'll go get you some water. After getting a positive answer, she ignored the gifts and immediately invited Shisui to come into the house. Shisui did not refuse and was very obedient. One of the purposes of this trip was to let Ichi understand the living conditions of ordinary clan members. Ichi picked up the things and followed closely behind. Hui followed after leaving a clone to guard the cart. After the three of them entered, they found that the room was fully equipped with facilities, including a washing machine, a microwave oven and even a TV, but almost all the appliances were covered with dust, as if they had not been used for a long time. There were also some yellow-rotten vegetable leaves piled at the foot of the table. Sorry, these are all the things we have at home. The old lady brought some boiled water to the few people, and then took out some odds and ends that had been stored for a long time from the cabinet. It's okay. Shisui waved his hand and was about to refuse when he heard a creak. The wooden door of a room slowly opened. Everyone looked over and saw a little girl quietly sticking her head out and looking at everyone curiously. Grandma, who are they? Sorry, this is my granddaughter, Tomimi. The old lady stood up and brought the girl to the three people and said, Tomimi, this is Lord Shisui. They are. The old lady was suddenly stunned when she spoke, and then looked at the two of them. This is Ichi, the son of the clan leader Fugaku, and this is big brother Hui. Hearing that Ichi was the son of the clan leader, the old lady paused, and her smile gradually became a little forced, but she still instructed Omimi. This is Lord Ichi, and this is Lord Hui. They are all ninja masters in the clan. Go and greet them. Omimi was only 3 years old, but she was not afraid of strangers at all. After hearing her grandmother's instructions, she said crisply, "Lord Shisui." After greeting with her head tilted, Tomimi held her fingers and looked at the table unconsciously. Shisui smiled, reached out and stroked the little girl's head, and then handed over the small pieces on the table. "Eat," Shisui said softly, but Tomimi looked at her grandmother and waited for her to nod before she started. "Where are Mom and Dad?" Ichi, who had been quiet all the time, suddenly asked, not knowing what he thought of. Shisui and Hua's faces changed when they heard this. The information of this family was all on the roster, and they had already looked through it before coming, so they didn't ask much, but they forgot about Ichi. They went to a very far place. As if she was concerned about Tomimi, the old lady replied softly even though she was in a bad mood, "I'm sorry." Ichi was already familiar with death, and he understood what the other party meant after hearing it. He wanted to make amends and continued, "I heard from my father that the third generation will pay the pension on time, and the clan will also compensate. If you need it, I can help you." Ichi, Shisui interrupted quickly, then stood up and bowed to the old lady to apologize. "I'm sorry, we will definitely solve the clan's affairs as soon as possible. These things are just our thoughts. If you encounter any difficulties, you can come to me." "I'm sorry." "No, you don't have to apologize. This has nothing to do with Shisui. If it weren't for your help during this period, I'm afraid it would be difficult for us to get through it." The old lady's voice was a little choked. Tomimi looked up and saw tears, and immediately hugged the old lady timidly. "Thank you, really, it's great that you can come." The old lady stroked Tomimi's hair, and she controlled her emotions to express her gratitude. Shisui bowed again and took the two away. After saying goodbye to the old lady, the three of them were in a heavy mood. They went to the next house without saying a word or resting. Then they went to more than a dozen houses in a row, until the things on the cart were delivered. They turned back again, one trip after another. Even at noon, they just ate something hastily, and then repeated this until the evening. The more they came into contact with these people, the more silent the three of them became. Shisui was grateful for Sima Yi's gaze in his heart, and at the same time, he was more annoyed that he had ignored them in the past. Who often just followed quietly. His eyes often fell on Ichi, observing his every move, and Ichi remained silent for the whole day. Among the people he came into contact with today, there were elderly people living alone, middle-aged ninjas with serious injuries and disabilities, and a 10-year-old boy who was alone with his younger brother and sister. "It's great that you can come. Thank you very much, Lord Shisui. I don't know what to say anymore. Thank you so much." He remembered the reactions of those people before they left. Unlike what he imagined, everyone was very happy and excited about Shisui's arrival, and some even shed tears. The 10-year-old boy even opened his Sharingan because of this. "Why did you stop me before? Did I say something wrong?" Ichi did not hide his curiosity. Under the streetlight, he finally asked as the three of them turned back. Shisui looked at Ichi. He knew that the other party had good intentions, so he did not mean to blame him. He just explained, the parents of the little girl were not ninjas, and they died on the night of the 9 tails. There is no pension. Not a ninja? Ichi's expression changed. His first reaction to the death of a middle-aged man was the battlefield. That is, ninjas. Well, ordinary people like this are the majority in the clan. Do you think there is any difference between them and those ordinary villagers outside? Ichi shook his head slowly. If it was before today, he would have labeled every Uchiha clan member except Shisui with a general label, arrogant, rude, and narrow-minded. But after today, he realized that even if they were born in Uchiha, the lives of ordinary clan members were still centered around the daily necessities and trivialities of life. It is not a matter of like or dislike, but there is undoubtedly a huge sense of separation from the ninja world he knew. In addition, he discovered something else. Brother Shisui, do they hate me? Including the old lady. It seemed that everyone's expression changed after knowing his identity. Although they were still respectful, they were not as grateful as they were to Shisui. Shisui paused when he heard this, then stepped forward and patted Ichi on the shoulder. He couldn't answer this question directly. They don't hate you? It's just because your father, our clan leader, has led everyone into trouble. Shisui didn't say anything, so Hua said it for him. Unexpectedly, Ichi seemed to have guessed it long ago. He lowered his head and whispered, "Is that really the case?" "Ichi? Don't mind. I promised you that I would definitely save everything. Now I have completed the first step. Please believe me for the next thing." Shisui stroked Ichi's short hair. He turned his back to the setting sun, and his gentle smile fell on Ichi's tender cheeks like the rising sun in the cold winter. Ichi stared at Shisui's smile blankly and nodded slowly, 3 steps away from the two, who pulled the cart and pouted his lips and walked away, thinking of Sima Yi's instructions. Keep an eye on Ichi's every move. If what happened today doesn't move him, then we have to consider getting rid of him. He's just a little brat, but you're so serious. You made me nervous all day. Looking back at the two glaring people, who sighed and pushed the cart away first, shouting, "Go back quickly, I'm starving." Chapter 74. It would be great if Shisui-sama became the clan leader. That's good. It seems that I was worrying too much. Thank you for your hard work. You don't have to go with them tomorrow. Just go to work with peace of mind. After dinner, Hua found time to report Ichi's performance to Sima Yi. Sima Yi nodded. Ichi was still a child after all. Since his thoughts could be corrected, there was no problem. He didn't need to take the risk of letting Shisui lose his composure and disrupt the plan to kill him. "Why do I have to go to work? I really don't want to go." Hua's mouth twitched. He wanted to relax, but after hearing Sima Yi's reminder, he remembered that he was just on vacation. Sima Yi smiled and saw that the other party was still here, so he said, "I remember before the new year." "That's right. You are worthy of being Uncle Yi. The matter of the police department is indeed important. I have to go back and rest quickly, so that I can have the energy to protect everyone in Konoha tomorrow. That's it. Please say cheer up to Shisui for me. Good night." Before Sima Yi finished speaking, Hua suddenly clapped his hands and looked like he had just remembered something. He quickly interrupted the conversation and talked to himself. After speaking, he ran away. Before leaving, he helped Sima Yi close the door. "This kid." Sima Yi chuckled, shook his head and didn't care. "Thank you for what happened today, Grandpa." Not long after Hua left, Shisui also came to the study. He stood in front of the desk and thanked him solemnly. Sima Yi asked calmly, "Is it because of Ichi?" Shisui nodded first, then was silent for a moment and shook his head slowly. "Because of Ichi? But not entirely because of Ichi. You made me realize how shallow I was before. Thank you very much." "You still don't realize it." Sima Yi sighed. He really wanted to tell Shisui this. Why did he put these people at the end? Because he didn't care about these ordinary people at all. Because these people should be the least valuable to them. But Shisui saw his so-called shallowness in these people. At this point, how could Sima Yi not know the difference in their ideas? But he has never been a rigid person. Since the other party is difficult to change, and he can't change people, it doesn't matter if he obeys a little, as long as it doesn't affect the overall situation. Reflect on yourself and summarize your mistakes. You have grown a lot by realizing this. It's all Grandpa's teaching. Take them and distribute the supplies as soon as possible. You can also take care of the tribesmen who are in particularly difficult situations. "Well, I understand, Grandpa." Seeing Sima Yi allow him to do it, Shisui was immediately delighted and thanked him repeatedly. "By the way, have you not fallen behind in your studies recently?" The studies refer to the clan history and the sealing technique. "I have read the clan history several times, and I have made great progress in the sealing technique, but I am still far from Grandpa's level." Shisui had learned the sealing technique before, but it was just a preliminary study. He didn't quite understand why Sima Yi attached so much importance to the sealing technique, but he rarely missed the other party's suggestions. He chose to accept them humbly and take time to practice. "That's good. No matter what, don't fall behind in the progress of the sealing technique. As for the rest, you can arrange it yourself." "Yes," Shisui agreed, and then they were busy. In the next few days, Shisui and Ichi continued to distribute supplies to various places in the tribe. In order to let people from all over the tribe see them, Sima Yi suggested that they change their positions every day and not continue from the previous day. Although this would add a lot of trouble, with the list in hand, they would not make mistakes if they were a little more careful. And Ichi followed Shisui closely. He always felt guilty and blamed himself when he witnessed the misery of the tribe again and again. In his gratitude and tears, his mood was extremely complicated, as if something in his chest was about to burst out. So, one evening a few days later, "Thank you, Lord Shisui, it's a good thing to have you, I really appreciate it." Listening to the woman's sincere thanks, Shisui and Uchiha waved goodbye with a smile on their faces. After the two left, the woman looked at the supplies delivered and Shisui's receding back and wiped away her tears and couldn't help thinking, it would be great if Lord Shisui was the tribe leader. The two walked along the path in the tribe facing the sunset, Shisui pushing the cart and Uchiha following behind. "Is this the last one?" Shisui looked back and replied with a smile. "Well, Uchiha, are you tired? It's okay, you don't have to continue from tomorrow. What about them next?" Uchiha shook his head. He was not stupid enough to think that those things were enough for people to live for a lifetime. "Is Uchiha worried about them?" Shisui looked at Uchiha's expression and felt relieved. "Well, this is the family's fault. I want to compensate them for my father." Uchiha recalled the elders who had frequently come to the house to argue with his father in recent days, and couldn't help feeling disgusted and guilty. "Those things are enough for them for the next half-month, and half a month is enough for us to solve all this. So don't worry, just work hard with me." The clear direction and clear purpose, as well as Shisui's confidence, made Uchiha not confused and relaxed. He nodded gently and followed Shisui. At night, after separating from Shisui, he returned home. There were many people guarding inside and outside the yard, including Tio. When they saw Uchiha, they all gestured. Uchiha responded politely one by one, and then he crossed the corridor and skillfully came behind a wall door. "Why can't we ask the third Hokage for an explanation? The reason why those people outside are so hostile to us is because of the third Hokage's arrangement. The Konoha high-level officials are not doing anything and are bullying us. We might as well launch a coup and take back everything that belongs to the Uchiha. The high-level officials have already given in. They just want to make our ceremony easier. We can't do this. We just need to have a good discussion with them and maybe it will be fine." "That's obviously intentional. How did we become the overbearing Uchiha?" "Damn it, the quarrels became more and more frequent from morning to night." Uchiha sat aside and listened quietly. After a while, he got up and left for the first time feeling a little impatient. "Since there is no consensus, let's hold a clan meeting to decide." In the hall, the great elder who had been silent all the time suddenly suggested. Everyone stopped arguing after hearing this, and the elders who had different opinions fell silent one after another. They looked at each other and nodded. Seeing that everyone agreed to hold a clan meeting, Fugaku had a headache but had no choice but to agree. A quarrel that lasted for several days finally ended, although they didn't discuss anything. Fugaku knew that this was just the beginning. According to past practices, the clan would not end so easily, nor would they reach a conclusion so easily. As long as there was a dispute, he would have time to continue thinking about how to resolve the conflict peacefully. After the elders left, Tio also came in from outside. "You go to the police department to make arrangements. We will hold a clan meeting tomorrow afternoon." Fugaku's voice sounded a little tired, and Tio lowered his head with mixed feelings. "Yes." Chapter 75 "I'm ready." Bang, damn, it's all those damn guys. They made us feel uncomfortable when drinking. "That's right, why do those people always do annoying things? Damn it." Inside Konoha village, at a remote barbecue stall, 7 or 8 people in police uniforms crowded together, drinking and cursing. It was already night, the cold wind was howling, and the streets were gradually sparse. The owner of the barbecue stall looked at the few people with a smile. From the initial helplessness to now, he has become accustomed to it, and even happily kept adding wine and food for the few people. "Don't they know how hard we work for these people every day? They really don't understand us at all, and they just say sarcastic words. Those bastards." After drinking, the few people became more excited, and the table was knocked by them. Okay, let's not talk about this. It's rare to relax. Cheers." Among the few people, who raised his glass and shouted with a ruddy face, everyone raised their glasses and responded with strange shouts, then drank them all, and then another glass was filled. Ha, it's a pity that Captain Tuo and the others have to go to the home of Chief Fugaku, otherwise we could all drink together. No, when I mention Captain Tuo, I think of the quarrel in Chief Fugaku's family. It's been so many days and they still haven't made a decision. It's really like their style, not decisive at all, fussy. Those people are elders and clan leaders. How can you say that to them? Wu Luzai. What elders and clan leaders? They can't solve these problems. They are so incompetent. You're right, incompetent. The voices of several people became louder and louder, and they drank more and more. Who was chatting with them and suddenly said, I heard that Shisui has been helping the tribe members because of this. Yes, I saw it too. He is worthy of being Shisui, unlike those guys who only quarrel all the time and do nothing. They don't look like an elder at all. I've visited Shisui before. It's great. He is a powerful and gentle person, who smiled and sighed unintentionally. It would be great if someone like that could become the clan leader. After this was said, several people were stunned, and then someone laughed and agreed, that's right, Shisui is powerful, very gentle to us, and decisive in his actions. He has been helping the tribe these days, unlike those guys. Yeah, so it might be possible. Haha, I heard that Shisui and the Hokage have a good relationship. If he becomes the tribe leader, maybe the police department won't have so many troubles in the future. Everyone laughed and talked, without avoiding this topic, and even began to imagine the days after Shisui became the tribe leader. Ha, you guys are drinking secretly here, it's really too much. While chatting, there was a sudden exclamation behind them. Several people looked back and found that it was Tuo and others who were transferred to the tribe leader's house to stand by. Tuo stood on the side with a gloomy expression, and several people beside him seemed to be unaware and came to the barbecue stall and shouted, Captain Tuo, let's drink together. Boss, give us some more skewers and draft beer. Got it. Who warmly invited everyone to sit down, and it was not until this moment that he realized that Tuo's expression was a little strange. Captain, why do you have that expression? What happened? Everyone turned around to look curiously. Tuo sighed and shook his head slowly, explaining, there will be a clan meeting tomorrow afternoon. We have already notified the other people in the police department. You are the only ones left. Don't drink too much and forget it. So it's just a clan meeting. I thought it was something big. Who cares? Come and have a drink. Tuo did not refuse the invitation. He sat down naturally and accompanied everyone to drink until late at night. Fortunately, everyone in the police department are ninjas. They can stay sober at any time if they want to. However, most people are immersed in a half-drunk and half-awake state and are unwilling to recover. After paying the money, everyone returned to the clan and dispersed. Tuo felt particularly complicated when he saw Hua saying goodbye to everyone. Let Shisui become the clan leader? This conversation lasted almost the entire drinking party. Tuo was full of thoughts and felt that something was wrong, but he could not find any reason to refute it. After bidding farewell to the others, he walked on the way home. The street lights in the alley flickered, and there were faint cries of children and scoldings of parents. Suddenly, there was a cheer approaching, and he hid his steps and stayed in the dark. Today I saw Master Shisui again. He is such an extraordinary person, both gentle and powerful. Just seeing him makes me feel extra relieved. It would be great if such a person could become the clan leader. It was a familiar conversation again. Tuo watched in the dark as several clan ninjas walked past him with a strong smell of alcohol. The familiar words made his heart sink. He hesitated for a moment and immediately changed direction to Fugaku's house. Fugaku was exhausted for a long time and had already rested at this moment. But even so, Fugaku still opened his eyes the moment Tuo came to the yard. What happened? A low voice came, and Tuo half knelt in the corridor across the door and wall and responded, there are some bad rumors in the clan. Mikoto had also woken up. She gently put on Fugaku's coat, revealing a little worry in her eyes. Fugaku patted her hands, stood up and went to the courtyard to sit in front of Tuo, listening to the other party's story and speculation. Shisui. After a moment, Fugaku sighed. Although his expression was as calm as before, Tuo still noticed something unusual from this sigh. Should we call him to ask, or, no, ignore it? I'll take care of it. Yes. After Tuo left, Fugaku just sat quietly in the courtyard. After an unknown amount of time, he heard subtle footsteps behind him. Fugaku's eyes moved slightly, and he stood up and went back to the bedroom to continue resting. Grandpa, I heard that the clan meeting will be held this afternoon. This is a good opportunity. Should we do it? Although I am a little anxious, I am ready. I will call Ichi Brother Hui later. Grandpa will help me keep an eye on Ichi. Brother Hui and I will be enough for the clan meeting. The next morning, the notice of the clan meeting arrived at Shisui. Because of Sima Yi's previous reminder, he was in a complicated mood. Knowing that the clan meeting was coming, he subconsciously felt that the time was ripe. No hurry, there are still 3 steps to go, and I remember I said half a month last time, right? There is still some time left. Compared to Shisui's entanglement, Sima Yi was quite calm. 3 steps to go? Is there still so much to go? Shisui was shocked. He felt that the situation was very good now. From the clan elders and the police department to other ninjas and ordinary clan members, they all supported him. Even Ichi chose to help him. If he took action now, his chances of winning were very high. Until you are at your wit's end, you should be stable. Okay, then, which 3 steps? Sima Yi chuckled, stroked his long beard and explained: draw fire, take advantage of the situation, test, show power, create momentum, and force the emperor to abdicate. Ah! Shisui was stunned, spread his fingers and said to himself, draw fire, take advantage of the situation, test, show power, create momentum, and force the emperor to abdicate. Aren't these 6 steps? Unexpectedly, Sima Yi laughed and said, the first 3 are the first step. I was afraid you wouldn't understand, so I split them up. The middle 2 are the second step, and forcing the emperor to abdicate is the last step. In fact, there is another step, which is to keep a retreat. After all, there is a saying that man proposes, God disposes. He must guarantee Shisui's life after failure. It's just that Sima Yi concealed it and integrated it into other actions. I was afraid you wouldn't understand. Shisui lowered his head, feeling deeply shocked. What about the clan meeting this afternoon? Someone will help you start the fight. You just need to wait for the right time. Shisui lowered his head and thought, and after a moment he seemed to realize something. Start the fight with clan leader Fugaku? Yes. Just wait and see how he performs, but according to my guess, there will be a result in 3 days at the shortest and 5 days at the longest. Sima Yi also learned about the situation of the clan meeting, and it was basically just a matter of going to a bigger place to argue. Although the radicals were in the majority, Fugaku would definitely try his best to maintain the balance with his character. With the clan leader secretly taking sides, there would be no result in a short time anyway. As long as Fugaku compromises, it's time for us to take action. I sorted out the outline again. The first volume is almost over here. I'm still a little excited when I think about it, but my mood is also very complicated. If I write too much, I'm afraid I'll be criticized for being watery, and if I write too fast, I'm afraid it's anticlimactic. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.